Chapter 2746. Then, Sir Divine Lord will speak if you have to pay an opening fee. Taoist Wu Mao did not speak anymore. A boy who looked to be in his teens walked to his side and said, "Didn't you collect an entrance fee?" Hearing the boy's words, the thousands of cultivators present immediately rebuked him. There were close to 10,000 cultivators present, and the dojo had already collected hundreds of thousands of deity crystals. Now that he had opened his mouth and continued to extort deity crystals, many people were furious. This is Sir Divine Lord's rule. Sir will suffer a backlash if he divulges heaven's secrets. Look at him, his hair and eyebrows are all gone. The boy explained. Ho Lai and Yun Tianyi were very unhappy and wanted to go up on stage. At this moment, Night Sorrow stopped them and threw a space sachet to Grand Supreme, saying, "The deity crystals here are enough for you to speak and explain the matter clearly." Taoist Wu Mao took the space sachet and used his divine soul to sense it. His eyes immediately lit up. He transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow. "Brother, how about I tell you in private?" "No need. Just say it." Night Sorrow did not transmit his voice and spoke directly. "Brother, you're a righteous man." "That's right. You hairless old Taoist. You should learn from him." Some people present immediately reprimanded him. Taoist Wu Mao, who was not moved at all, continued. "At that time, I thought I was going to die, but at the crucial moment, I discovered the void beast's fatal weakness. It's afraid of fire. As long as it gets close and uses a fire elemental secret art, I will obtain unexpected results. If the fire elemental secret art is strong enough, I can definitely protect myself in the soundless ocean." "What kind of environment is it in the depths of the soundless ocean?" Night Sorrow frowned slightly. He could sense that Taoist Wu Mao's words were half true and half false. Some of it was true, but most of it was not. This allowed him to confirm one thing. This Taoist Wu Mao, although he looked mysterious and greedy, had indeed been to the soundless ocean. This was a huge gain. The depths of the soundless ocean? When Taoist Wu Mao heard this question, he pondered for a moment and said, "In the depths of the soundless ocean, the surface of the sea is extremely calm. There is no wind or waves. The surface of the water is like a mirror, and there is no sound. This is also the origin of the soundless ocean's name." In other words, the depths of the soundless ocean's hearing of the soundless ocean? Taoist Wu Mao nodded and said, "That's right. Therefore, it is very dangerous to travel in the depths of the soundless ocean. But if it is to soundless ocean, be prepared." These words caused Yi Shang's frown to deepen. He chided, "Speak the truth." As he cultivated the power of virtue, he could sense that Taoist Wu Mao's words were becoming more and more fake. How did you know?" Hearing Yi Shang's rebuke, Taoist Wu Mao was momentarily dazed, but he quickly recovered and said, "The soundless sea's ability to block sound and divine sense is true." What else do you know? Tell me everything." After all, he was the domain lord. Night Sorrow felt that it was necessary to let the cultivators of the immortal domain know the truth about the soundless ocean. He did not want them to overestimate themselves and continue to throw their lives away. After hearing Taoist Wu Mao's words, he could tell that the soundless ocean was extremely dangerous. At the very least, it was not a place that ordinary godlords could enter. Even those on the godlord list might not be able to escape unscathed. At this moment, Taoist Wu Mao said, "The most important thing to do in the soundless ocean is to prepare an extremely sturdy ship. Otherwise, if the ship is destroyed by the beasts, we can only swim in the ocean because there is no way to fly." "What grade of ship do we need?" someone asked. "If possible, it would be best if it is made of Dominator-grade materials, because even King-grade ships can be destroyed." Taoist Wu Mao glanced at Night Sorrow and said with a serious expression, "A ship that requires Dominator-grade materials?" Hearing Taoist Wu Mao's words, Yun Tianyi immediately asked, "Then how did you survive back then?" "The main reason this Taoist survived is because I have a very powerful flame. Also, this Taoist has a king-grade weapon that can be used as a ship. It just so happened that when the ship was destroyed by the beasts, it saved this Taoist's life." Taoist Wu Mao explained with some embarrassment. Then he took out his god-grade weapon from his spatial weapon. It was actually a lid. This lid, after flipping it over, could be used as a ship. This is the original lid of the earthen jar? Seeing this lid, Knight Sorrow's heart shook. After killing the divine King Bei Ning, the broken Dominator-grade earthen jar fell into his hands. The earthen jar was too damaged and could not be repaired like Tianyun Bao's. He had placed it in his spatial weapon, and was prepared to use it at a critical moment. Now that he saw the lid of the earthen jar, he was a little uneasy. He thought to himself, if the earthen jar and lid are combined and repaired, wouldn't it be another Dominator-grade weapon? This lid is made of a very high-grade material. Yin Tianyi, who saw the lid in front of her and was reminded by her ancestor, immediately realized that the lid in front of her was not simple and praised it. Although this divine lord is not sure what material this lid is made of, it is definitely sturdy. Otherwise, it would not be able to ensure that I leave the soundless ocean safely. Daoist Wu Mao smiled proudly and then said something shocking. However, this Daoist has calculated that this divine lord's fate with this Dominator-grade weapon will end today. Therefore, I am prepared to auction it. Everyone present, if you want to enter the soundless ocean to hunt void beasts or find other opportunities, you might as well auction this Daoist's lid away. What? You are actually taking out such a good item to auction? Hearing Daoist Wu Mao's words, Yin Tianyi, who already knew what grade this item was, immediately shouted in surprise. Regardless of whether it is good or bad, it is fate that obtains it. Since it is fate, there will be meeting and parting. Today this Daoist's fate with this lid has ended, so I am prepared to give it to one of you present. After Daoist Wu Mao said this, he looked at Knight Sorrow and said, You are righteous and generous, so why don't you bid for this lid of mine? How about it? Hearing this, even Knight Sorrow was a little uncertain about the other party's intentions. He asked in return, What price are you prepared to sell it for? 10 million deity crystals is not too little. Even 100 million deity crystals is not too little. Daoist Wu Mao said with a smile. Yi Shang felt a bit disgusted when he saw the greedy smile on his face. He could feel that this Daoist Wu Mao was not an honest person. It would not be easy for him to obtain the lid in front of him. However, since the other party had asked for a price, Knight Sorrow thought for a moment and said, I will bid half a king-class divine vein. After all, this was the virtuous divine lord. Knight Sorrow did not want to treat him unfairly in terms of price, so he directly offered half a king-class divine vein as the price. Although it was still not as valuable as a portion of a Dominator-grade divine weapon, it was already a shocking price. Chapter 2747. Do you recognize what this is? Daoist Wu Mao immediately sent a voice transmission to Knight Sorrow. He had not expected to get such a bid. I recognize it. It is a part of the sovereign divine weapon. It is a priceless treasure. However, I am offering half a king-class divine vein, which is also valuable. If you think it is not enough, we can discuss it again. Knight Sorrow said. He had attained his Dao through merit, and did not want to take advantage of resources. For example, he could bring a few others into the dojo and save a few hundred deity gems. However, he did not do so. This was a kind of boldness. Since you recognize it, I can't sell it to you. Daoist Wu Mao replied and looked at the others who were bidding. After Knight Sorrow opened half a king-class divine vein, they all fell silent. No one could offer such a price. After waiting for a while, Daoist Wu Mao saw that no one else spoke. He said, I said that I only like deity gems and not divine veins. You can continue bidding and see who can offer more deity gems. You don't want the divine vein? How many deity gems do you want? One of the Sir Gods asked immediately. Since it is an auction, you can name any price you want. Daoist Wu Mao smiled. When he looked at Knight Sorrow, a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. Brother Yi, what is going on with him? The value of a divine vein is much higher than deity gems. He doesn't want it and wants to auction deity gems. Yin Tianyi saw the current situation and sent a voice transmission to Knight Sorrow. If I am not wrong, he just wants to cheat deity gems. He has no intention of selling the lid. A king-class divine vein is too valuable. He is afraid that he can't afford it. Therefore he chose not to buy it. Knight Sorrow replied after thinking for a while. At the same time, He opened the eye of the sea serpent and observed Taoist Wu Mao. He realized that Taoist Wu Mao's appearance was not disguised. Although he looked benevolent at the moment, he was a shifty-eyed person. I understand now. Taoist Wu Mao is not really trying to sell the lid. He just wants to cheat deity gems and then find a chance to escape. My king-class divine vein is too valuable. He won't dare to cheat me, Knight Sorrow said after thinking for a while. Should we expose him or wait until he is about to escape? Ho Lai immediately sent a voice transmission to Yishang. Right now, we're just speculating. We don't have any real evidence. We can only wait until he's about to escape and catch him red-handed, Yishang said. If I'm not wrong, there must be a long-distance teleportation array here. Then, what should we do? Yin Tianyi glanced at Yishang. However, he didn't speak directly. He also used voice transmission. As the domain lord, I can't just stand by and watch someone swindle people in the immortal domain. Once Taoist Wu Mao activated the teleportation array, he would be teleported to Night Sorrow's array. Night Sorrow paid another 100 deity gems and returned to the Dao Hall. Taoist Wu Mao was still auctioning the extremely valuable ruler divine weapon. Many people were bidding crazily. They felt that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Tianyi, you bid too. Let's see what he is up to. Yishang sent a voice transmission to Yin Tianyi. At the moment, none of them were participating in the bidding. All right. I will bid a price that no one can afford. Nominally, I will bid for the lid. Yin Tianyi nodded and immediately joined the bidding. At this moment, the price of the lid had already reached 30 million divine crystals. This was an astronomical figure. Not many people present could afford it. The bidders were probably going to use some items as deity gems. 31 million. Yin Tianyi shouted a number when no one else was bidding. Kid, are you looking for trouble with me? Do you want to die? After Yin Tianyi spoke, a burly man with a scar on his face immediately transmitted his voice to her. He was obviously very strong. He did not seem to be inferior to Taoist Wu Mao. Yin Tianyi was not afraid at all. Everyone has the right to bid for a good item. Who do you think you are? How dare you threaten me? Good. You are very good. When this matter is over, let's find a place to spar. The Divine Lord said angrily. Let's spar then. I'm not afraid of you. Yin Tianyi replied non-committally when she heard the other party's threatening words. Taoist Wu Mao saw that no one was bidding and said, if no one is bidding, I will sell it to the brother who bid 31 million. I'm not bidding anymore. The cultivator who transmitted his voice to Yin Tianyi snorted, and did not continue bidding. The others also fell silent. No one continued to bid. Night Sorrow was a little surprised. He said, the value of a ruler divine weapon is far more than that. Even if these people could not afford the price, they would not be behaving like this. Look at them. Everyone seems to be very satisfied with this result. That seems to be the case. It seems that the people who bid are quite satisfied with the result in front of them. After hearing Night Sorrow's voice transmission, Zhu Yunxiao immediately observed her surroundings. She realized that none of the people who bid looked regretful. Everyone looked as if they had won the bid. It was very strange. Could it be that Taoist Wu Mao has some kind of method to confuse people? Night Sorrow speculated. However, he did not feel the influence of the array or the fluctuation of the divine soul. After pondering for a moment, Night Sorrow transmitted his voice to Yin Tianyi. Since we won the bid, let's ask him to trade. Okay. However, I don't have that many deity crystals on me at the moment. Yin Tianyi said, a little embarrassed. When he bid, he felt no pressure at all. However, he obviously did not have that many deity crystals now. I have about enough. Don't worry and communicate with him. Night Sorrow instructed. Recently he had killed many divine kings and ransacked Bei Ning's divine king residence. He had a huge amount of deity crystals on him. I'm relieved to hear that. Brother Yi, don't worry. After the item is traded, I will give it to you. After all, it was bought with your wealth. Yin Tianyi transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow and said seriously. Then he looked at Taoist Wu Mao on the stage. He said, now that no one else is bidding, the item is mine, right? At this time, Night Sorrow reminded him. I can feel that he will not hand over the real ruler divine weapon. Be careful. Haha. You are the winner of the bid. Of course, the item is yours. We will exchange the money and the item at the same time. Taoist Wu Mao smiled and handed over the lid in his hand. Chapter 2748. It's so easy to get it. Why does it feel so strange? Yin Tianyi held the lid that Taoist Wu Mao handed over. She felt that it was fake, but she couldn't tell what was wrong. Hence, she handed the lid to Knight Sorrow and said, Brother Yi, why don't you take a look at the authenticity of this lid? All right. I'll study it. When Knight Sorrow touched the lid, he felt that the aura was exactly the same as the jar in his spatial artifact. He couldn't tell what was wrong with it even with the sea serpent's eye. However, everyone felt that something was wrong. Getting half of a Dominator divine artifact so easily was like a fantasy. Is it related to the environment here? Look at the others. They all look very satisfied. Could it be that we experienced the same thing as we did? Zhu Yunxiao observed her surroundings and found that it was very quiet. There wasn't any noise at all. She felt that this didn't make sense. It's very strange. Knight Sorrow calmed down and thought for a moment before saying, I think I can guess what's going on. Brother Yi, what's going on? Don't keep us in suspense. Yin Tianyi immediately asked. Knight Sorrow looked around and transmitted his voice. If I'm not wrong, we're in the space of a Dominator divine artifact. The aura I feel here is naturally the aura of a real Dominator. Presumably, as long as we get out, we'll be able to tell that it's not real. But we're in the space of a Dominator divine artifact. It should be very difficult to get out, right? Then the array you set up just now, is it also? Gung Chen didn't finish his sentence because this matter was extremely terrifying. Today, not only would they lose money, but their lives might also be in danger. Ha ha ha. Thank you for your deity crystals. This poor Taoist is leaving. At this moment, Taoist Wu Mao's voice sounded. Then, everyone was teleported out. After Taoist Wu Mao teleported Yi Shang and the others out, they found themselves in a boundless ocean. Holai Lika shouted, Quick! Boat! Summon the boat! Good. Everyone get on the boat. Linger, come out as well. We might already be in the silent ocean. Yi Shang opened the sea serpent's eye. He looked around at the storm, lightning, and waves. He immediately took out the king-level halberd he had forged himself. After everyone had boarded the ship, Knight Sorrow asked Cao Ling, Linger, can you sense anything? Linger, give it a try. Cao Linger replied to Knight Sorrow, and used the special ability of her horns to sense her surroundings. Not long after, she replied, There's a slight aura of a Dominator-grade divine artifact nearby, but it's not obvious. Is this what you sensed? Zhu Yunxia immediately handed the lid that Yin Tianyi bid for to Cao Linger and asked. At this moment, everyone could already sense that the Dominator-grade aura on the lid was very faint and almost undetectable. Cao Linger looked at the lid and shook her head. It's not the aura on it, but it's very similar. Linger, point in the direction for Big Brother Knight Sorrow. Knight Sorrow said after hearing Cao Linger's words. He knew that everyone had been tricked this time. He originally thought that he had the situation under control, but he had been tricked by the hairless Taoist. With the help of the Dominator-grade divine artifact, he had successfully shaken off the distance. At the same time, most of the people who had been thrown out of the Dominator-grade divine artifact by the hairless Taoist took out their prepared boats. Good. Big Brother Knight Sorrow, that aura is coming from the north. It's getting weaker and weaker, Cao Linger said timidly. She could sense that everyone present was in a bad mood. Linger, don't be afraid. They're not targeting you. Knight Sorrow said and steered the battleship towards the north. Just like that, they chased for a day and a night. Cao Linger suddenly said, Big Brother Knight Sorrow, that aura is getting stronger and stronger. It should be at the bottom of the sea. At the bottom of the sea? Knight Sorrow opened his sea serpent eye and realized that he couldn't see what the bottom of the sea looked like. He looked at everyone present and asked, What do you guys think? Should we go down and check it out? Go down. We have to go down. Otherwise, how can we accept being cheated of so many deity crystals? Yin Tianyi said. He was in a bad mood. What do you guys think? Night Sorrow looked at Ho Lai, Zhu Yunxia and Geng Chen. I think we should go down and check it out. Otherwise, how can we accept it? Ho Lai and Yun Tianyi had the same idea. Zhu Yunxia and Geng Chen nodded. They couldn't accept being cheated like this. Good. Then we'll take the risk and check it out, Night Sorrow said. Just in case, you guys enter the vast heaven pagoda first. I'll control the warship to go down. Actually, he was similarly uncomfortable in his heart. The scam just now was actually very obvious. But even he didn't see through the other party's trick. This made people somewhat depressed. Okay. Let's enter the vast heaven pagoda. Everyone didn't have any objections to Night Sorrow's suggestion, and immediately entered the vast heaven pagoda. Night Sorrow entered the warship's inner cabin, and let the warship dive straight into the sea. Just as they started diving, the surroundings immediately fell into pitch-black darkness. Night Sorrow opened his sea serpent eye and looked outside the warship. He could only observe a distance of 1,000 meters. To a divine lord, this was simply a blind state. If they encountered a sneak attack, there was no time to react at all. Big Brother Night Sorrow, after we went down, that sovereign-rank divine artifact aura became even stronger. Cao Ling who stayed in the cabin with Night Sorrow, said somewhat excitedly. On her horn, ripple-like light constantly emitted, spreading out to the surroundings. Following that, Night Sorrow followed Cao Ling's guidance and rushed toward the location where the sovereign aura was emitting. Boom. It was just that not long after, the warship's hull encountered a violent collision. Night Sorrow released his divine soul power and investigated a bit. He discovered that the one who attacked the warship was a gigantic shark. This shark was shockingly at the Divine Lord level, but it should not have transformed. It looked like it didn't have any spirituality, but it was extremely dangerous. A Divine Lord level demonic beast won't cause much harm to the King level warship. Let's continue going down. Night Sorrow, who was pondering whether to leave the warship and launch an attack on the shark, thought about it and gave up this idea. He controlled the warship to continue diving. After passing through a layer of cloud-like mist, Night Sorrow and Cao Ling discovered that the world in front of them had suddenly bid farewell to darkness. The shark demonic beast that had been following them had also disappeared. In its place was an underwater world that seemed like a pure land. There was clear seawater, large patches of coral, and small fish and jellyfish that were constantly swaying their bodies. Chapter 2749. This place is so peaceful. It's really a paradise at the bottom of the sea. Using the sea serpent's eye to observe the surrounding Night Sorrow, he opened his mouth and sighed. He discovered that the scenery before his eyes was all real. Furthermore, he could confirm that this place was not the interior of a sovereign-rank divine artifact. Looking at the fake cover in his hand again, it did not have that kind of realistic aura. However, after observing for a while, Night Sorrow did not discover any traces of the hairless Taoist. Everything at the bottom of the sea was so peaceful and auspicious. One could not see any waves at all. At this time, Night Sorrow looked at Cao Ling and said, Ling, can you still sense anything? Yes. Ling can sense a strong sovereign-rank divine artifact aura, as well as a large number of divine crystals aura. At the same time that Cao Ling responded, she pointed at the location of the coral group and said, Okay, let's go over and take a look. Cao Ling's talent was very good. When she said such words, Night Sorrow felt that the hairless Taoist should be in the coral group. He immediately controlled the battleship and arrived above the coral group. Looking out from the battleship, he still could not see any clues. But Cao Ling said with certainty, that aura is definitely below the coral group. Since Ling said it's below, then it's definitely below. You enter the vast heaven pagoda. Big Brother Night Sorrow, prepare to leave the battleship and investigate. Night Sorrow said and let Cao Ling enter the vast heaven pagoda, while he put away the battleship, held the Samsara heavenly halberd in hand, and swam towards the location of the coral group. After approaching the coral group, Night Sorrow discovered that these corals were very special. Not only could they block aura, they could also block divine soul perception. At such a close distance, he still could not use divine soul power to investigate below the coral group. Using the sea serpents, I also could not see through at all. Big brother Night Sorrow, how is it? Did you find it? Ling, can't sense any aura in the vast heaven pagoda anymore. Cao Ling, in the vast heaven pagoda asked somewhat worriedly. Big brother is fine. I haven't found anything yet, but I'm looking forward to finding something later. While Night Sorrow responded, he began to wander around the huge group of corals, paying close attention to every detail. The entire coral reef covered an area of about 50,000 kilometers. To an ordinary person, it was extremely large, but to a divine lord like Night Sorrow who had powerful movement techniques, it was not considered large at all. Not long after, he had explored half of the corals. At this time, Night Sorrow's eyes were suddenly attracted by a dim light. A terrifying green light suddenly appeared on the originally peaceful seabed. Night Sorrow, who was standing among the corals, saw the dim light flash by and immediately thought of a name. Void Beast. That's right. It was a void beast that had just streaked across the coral without noticing him. To be more precise, it was a divine king-level void beast. A void beast with such strength could only be described as terrifying. This was also the reason why Night Sorrow didn't immediately attack. It would not be easy for him to successfully kill such a powerful void beast with his own strength. Ordinary void beasts had stronger combat strength than cultivators of the same level. Looks like this is indeed the seabed of the Soundless Sea. But why is the void beast so powerful? Seeing the void beast pass by, Night Sorrow did not immediately attack. This was not because he was afraid, but because he was prepared to make a move later. Furthermore, the void beast's range of activity was basically fixed, but if the hairless Taoist escaped, the 30 million divine crystals would be completely wasted. The priorities of these two matters were different. After the void beast left, Night Sorrow continued to search the coral reef and finished searching the coral reef that stretched for 50,000 kilometers. He did not find any trace of the hairless Taoist. Night Sorrow immediately used the Samsara halberd to dig into the seabed. He dug for about 10,000 kilometers. He used the sea serpent eye to discover a concealment array. After using some means to break it, he came to a forest with birds flying everywhere. He could also clearly sense the aura of a sovereign-level divine artifact. How is this the seabed? It's a paradise. This is completely a true paradise. Yi Shang immediately sighed in admiration when he saw the scenery of this small world. There was shockingly a king-level divine range here, and there were mountains and rivers. At the location of the mountain peak, a palace was currently being built. The material used to build the palace was shockingly square divine crystals. There must be the divine crystals that we were cheated of inside. This hairless Taoist is really extravagant. In the vast heaven pagoda, seeing the palace that was being built, Yin Tianyi immediately transmitted. Extravagant or not, it doesn't matter. But swindling people in my immortal divine realm. This matter must be dealt with. After Night Sorrow finished replying to Yin Tianyi, he looked in a direction and said, Since you discovered that I'm here, Taoist priest, please show yourself. He could determine that he was already discovered by the hairless Taoist. I knew long ago that you were not simple, but I didn't expect that you could actually track me here. This poor Taoist really underestimated you. The hairless Taoist walked out of a Taoist temple at the foot of the mountain, and looked in Night Sorrow's direction. He snorted coldly and said, If this poor Taoist had known, this poor Taoist would have trapped you in the space of the Dominator artifact. You think too much. You can't trap me with just half a Dominator artifact in your hands. After replying confidently, Night Sorrow used his divine sense to scan the hairless Taoist and the others in the small world. Other than the hairless Taoist, there were 3 other Sir Gods. They were all beautiful women, but their strength wasn't strong. He guessed that these 3 women were the hairless Taoist's wives. You are very confident. If I'm not wrong, you must be the dominator of the immortal divine realm, Night Sorrow? The hairless Taoist said as he sized up Night Sorrow. Naturally, he had heard of the commotion in the immortal divine realm, but he had never seen Night Sorrow in person. That's me. You swindled me in my divine realm. How do you think this matter should be resolved? Night Sorrow looked at the hairless Taoist. How? At most, I'll return the deity crystals that I swindled from you. The hairless Taoist said nonchalantly. It was obvious that he wasn't afraid of Night Sorrow. Or rather, he didn't think much of him. If you keep up this attitude, today's matter is going to get serious. Night Sorrow's body emitted a strong fighting spirit. He was ready to attack. Haha. In the immortal divine realm, you are the dominator. But in this poor dominator artifact, you are nothing. Haven't you noticed that you've already entered my artifact? Taoist Wu Mao said with a grin. So what if I'm in your dominator artifact? Night Sorrow replied nonchalantly. He was sure that he had entered the world of the dominator artifact, but he didn't show any fear. Now that you have entered this poor dominator artifact, regardless of whether you are the dominator artifact or not, you have to submit to me. Chapter 2750. Originally, Night Sorrow did not think much of Taoist Wu Mao. At most, he was just a liar. However, when he laughed, he gave off an evil vibe. That smile seemed to come from the depths of hell. It was not something a human could have. However, Night Sorrow could not see anything when he used the sea serpent eye to observe. This was because he was in the internal space of the Dominator deity weapon, and his senses were blocked. This was the special ability of the Dominator deity weapon. Even he could not resist it. I wonder what will happen if I take out the main body of the clay jar. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow took out the clay jar from his spatial equipment without hesitation. In an instant, the clay jar emitted a gentle light. With the essence of this light, Yishang immediately used the sea serpent's eye to see that the hairless Taoist wasn't a Taoist but a clam spirit. Moreover, it was an extremely dark type of abyss black clam. The other three divine lords were the same type. So you are a clam. I thought only dragons like gold and silver. I did not expect a black clam like you to be the same. After seeing the black clam's true form, Night Sorrow immediately attacked with his Samsara halberd. So you have the other half of the Dominator deity weapon. You have searched high and low for it, only to find it without any effort. Taoist Wu Mao's eyes lit up when he realized that the clay jar was in Night Sorrow's hands. He shouted, "My beloved concubines, attack! As long as we get the clay jar, we can become the overlords of the silent ocean." I did not expect such a good thing to happen today. Hearing Taoist Wu Mao's words, one of the Sir Gods looked at Night Sorrow excitedly. When he realized that he had the strength of a lower Sir God, he immediately said disdainfully, "With only the strength of a lower Sir God, the four of us will be like a lion hunting a rabbit." Hee hee. Don't underestimate him. After all, he is the dominator of the immortal divine realm, Night Sorrow. He also has a dominator deity weapon. Taoist Wu Mao reminded as he took out a shell-shaped deity weapon to block the Samsara halberd's attack. However, he had underestimated Night Sorrow's attack. The Samsara halberd shattered the shell-shaped deity weapon. What? He is so strong? Husband, are you alright? No Hair Taoist's other wife said in shock when she saw how terrifying Night Sorrow's attack was. She was the same as the previous one. She despised Night Sorrow. I'm fine, but a single strike from him can destroy a Divine Lord level divine artifact. We must be careful, Taoist Wu Mao said before continuing. Everyone, take out your trump card and fight with your Emperor-grade artifacts. Yes, husband. The three Sir Gods responded one after another, each taking out a king-grade divine artifact. The hairless Taoist held the cover of the ruler-grade god weapon in his hand. It was obvious that he was taking Night Sorrow seriously. You've accumulated quite a lot. Looks like you've amassed quite a bit of wealth. Night Sorrow mocked when he saw that the four of them each had a king-grade god artifact. Some of them even had a sovereign-grade god artifact. When Taoist Wu Mao heard this, he smiled coldly and said, "Have you thought of retreating after seeing our abundant accumulation? I'm telling you it's too late. Today, you will die here, and I will completely repair the ruler-grade god weapon and merge the two into one. How dare an evil creature like you call yourself a Taoist? Don't insult the word Taoist." Night Sorrow complained. He immediately activated the Treastrimsa battle secret technique and shot the forbidden reincarnation spear at one of the female cultivators. This was no longer his strongest spear technique, but he felt that it was enough to deal with the female cultivator in front of him. Kill, kill, kill. Faced with Night Sorrow's attack, The beautiful female cultivator immediately turned into a dark figure. Her pitch-black appearance made one's heart palpitate. She slashed at the heavenly reincarnation halberd. The king-grade god sword in her hand seemed to have grown eyes. It split into 9 sword lights and surrounded the light from the heavenly reincarnation halberd. What's the use of just binding the spear light? The essence of this move is the power of lightning and the power of the attack. Knight Sorrow sneered when the spear light was bound. He activated the power of lightning in this move. The lightning, which was mixed with the power of merit, struck the female cultivator. The female cultivator screamed and was sent flying by the power of merit. The black on the surface of her body was gradually purified and turned white. Knight Sorrow looked coldly at the hairless Taoist. So she wasn't a dark creature, but her soul was corrupted by you. Yes, so what? The hairless Taoist smiled maliciously. The Dark Abyss invasion of the Immortal Dominion has just begun. No matter who it is, anyone who tries to invade the Immortal Dominion will be attacked crazily. Today, you will die without a doubt. Knight Sorrow was shocked to hear the hairless Taoist's words. So there was such a force waiting to invade the Immortal Dominion. He had thought that only the Divine King, who was under the ruler, could cause an impact to the Immortal Dominion. Now it seemed that he had been too optimistic. You think too much. The cultivators of the realm of the gods are too weak to resist the invasion of the Dark Abyss. Our methods are more powerful than you can imagine. The hairless Taoist said confidently. He then used the ruler weapon in his hand to attack. Although the ruler weapon's lid was only half of the weapon, it was almost undamaged. The attack contained a trace of the ruler's power. Since you are so strong, why don't you show me? Knight Sorrow knew that he couldn't use the Samsara halberd to block this attack. He immediately activated the jar and used the energy within to resist the lid. With a loud boom, the two of them were almost evenly matched. However, the lid in the hairless Taoist's hand was undamaged. The damaged jar in Knight Sorrow's hand was heavily damaged. The cracks on it were even more severe, as if it would shatter at any moment. Looks like the jar won't last much longer. Knight Sorrow, who was controlling the jar, could clearly feel the weapon in his hand crying out in pain. It seemed to be unwilling to give up, but there was no other way. The damage to the jar was too severe. This wasn't a problem with the lid. When Knight Sorrow had obtained the jar, it was already damaged to this extent. Perhaps it was already damaged when the Divine King, Bei Ning, found it. Obviously, he had suffered a very serious blow in the past. Don't use my weapon again. If it breaks, I will make all the living beings in the Immortal Dominion pay with their blood. Seeing that the jar was about to be damaged, the hairless Taoist snorted coldly and threatened. You don't know what's good for you. There are less than 7 people in the entire realm of the gods who are strong enough to threaten me. In the face of the hairless Taoist's threat, Yishang replied disdainfully. However, he still put away the jar. Chapter 2751. Ha ha ha. Aren't you the one who put away the sovereign artifact anyway? Taoist Wu Mao laughed sinisterly when he saw Knight Sorrow keeping the jar of the ruler artifact. He ordered, set up the formation. The way he saw it, once Knight Sorrow put away the jar, he would definitely fall into the maze again, and not be able to tell what was going on. Yes. After Taoist Wu Mao gave the order, his 3 wives immediately responded to him from 3 other directions. Abyss 4 Evils formation. After receiving a response from his 3 wives, Taoist Hairless immediately set up a new trapping array within the small world of the sovereign artifact. After the formation was activated, it released a thick black gas that enveloped Knight Sorrow. Is this a technique from the Dark Abyss? Knight Sorrow opened his sea serpent eye to see through the thick black gas. However, he couldn't see through the thick fog. Therefore, he released his divine spirit power to sense his surroundings. However, he quickly realized that it was useless. Ha! Don't waste your time. This formation came from the ruler artifact. How can a monarch god like you break it? Taoist Wu Mao laughed proudly when he saw Knight Sorrow get lost in the formation. His laughter sounded like it came from all directions to Knight Sorrow. It was very blurry and he couldn't figure out where it came from. Taoist Wu Mao's 3 wives also laughed sinisterly. In the thick black gas, they completely reverted to the appearance of abyss creatures. On the other side, the divine crystal palace was still being built. Its height was constantly increasing. Knight Sorrow naturally couldn't sense this. He was in the black fog and didn't panic. However, he hadn't figured out how to break the formation yet. Yin Tianyi, who was in the clear sky pagoda, saw that Knight Sorrow was in a predicament and immediately asked anxiously, "Brother Yi, are you okay? I feel that this formation isn't simple. It gives off an extremely sinister feeling. It's definitely not a simple trapping formation." "I have this feeling too. However, I'm not sure what will descend. Let's take it one step at a time. This kind of dark aura might be able to deal with others, but if you want to put me in a difficult situation, it's not very likely." Knight Sorrow replied and gathered the virtue in his body, turning it into a virtue dragon that circled around the formation. Devour and evolve the surrounding black gas. After being evolved by the dragon of virtue, some of the black gas around Knight Sorrow immediately turned into ordinary gas. Everything within a radius of several hundred feet around him was purified. "I didn't expect you to be not only a domain lord, but also a merit divine lord." Taoist Wu Mao snorted coldly when he saw what was happening. He looked at Knight Sorrow with an increasingly cold gaze. After using a large number of deity crystals to summon a three-headed, six-armed evil god from the array, he prostrated himself on the ground and said, "Honorable evil king of the abyss, please help me devour this virtuous sovereign before me. Kill, 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 die, die, die." The summoned evil king opened his mouth and said 6 words, 3 kill and 3 die, giving off an extremely evil and cold feeling. This thing that was summoned seems to be very strong. "Captain, you have to be careful." Although Ho Lai, who was in the clear heaven pagoda, did not release his divine soul to sense the evil king's strength, he still warned him with some trepidation. He felt that even if he was in the clear heaven pagoda, he would immediately be targeted by the evil king when he glanced at it from the corner of his eyes. That kind of gaze made him feel as if there was a blade at his back. "It's fine. It's just something deliberately mystifying. Its original body should be very strong, and it might even be a sovereign. However, this shadow in front of us only has the strength of the divine king at most." With the help of the virtue dragon, Knight Sorrow calmly comforted Ho Lai after sensing the evil king's strength. "Knight Sorrow, big brother, you have to be careful. This guy in front of us looks very evil. Ling, doesn't want you to get hurt." Cao Ling, who was kept in the clear heaven pagoda by Knight Sorrow, warned him despite knowing that Knight Sorrow was very confident. "Ling, don't worry. They have trump cards, but so does big brother Knight Sorrow." Knight Sorrow comforted her and said, "Watch me kill the evil king first, then break the formation. Finally, destroy the small world in front of us. I feel that they are definitely plotting something by using divine crystals to build a palace here." After saying that, Knight Sorrow swallowed a few recovery pills and activated the Treastrimsa battle secret technique again, raising his strength to the peak. Then, he used the Samsara halberd to attack with the Heavenly Cloud's reincarnation spear. This move was a new spear technique that Knight Sorrow had comprehended. It was not very flashy, but when it was used, it would borrow some of Tianyun Bao's sovereign strength. Its power was very terrifying. The Samsara halberd did not fly out of Knight Sorrow's palm, but it shot out a golden spear light. What a powerful spear technique. The three-headed six-armed evil king, who had been summoned, had not made any movements. After Knight Sorrow made his move, he coldly snorted. Then a saber, a spear, a sword, a halberd, an axe, and a battle axe appeared on his 6 arms respectively. They shot out dark energy towards Knight Sorrow's spear light one after another. After these 6 streams of dark energy were shot out, they quickly gathered together and formed a thick pillar of light. It collided with Knight Sorrow's spear light. Boom! After a loud bang, the surrounding void was immediately shattered. At the same time, the dark energy light pillar shot out by the saber, spear, sword, halberd, axe, and battle axe were also shattered. The Heavenly Cloud's reincarnation spear's spear light fiercely bombarded the evil king's body. Bang! The three-headed, 6-armed divine king was immediately sent flying by this attack. However, his injuries were not very serious. After he got up, he said in a cold voice, A puny divine monarch's attack actually contained the power of a sovereign. Now I, the evil king, will let you experience what a true sovereign's power is. Long live Lord Evil King. After the evil king said this, Taoist Wu Mao, who was originally prostrating on the ground, was so excited that he continuously kowtowed. Seeing their performance, Knight Sorrow said disdainfully, "You, who can't even be considered a divine soul, are delusional enough to think of using a true sovereign's attack? Stop dreaming." "Haha. Are you dreaming? You will know immediately." The three-headed, six-armed evil king laughed sinisterly. He swallowed all the saber, spear, sword, halberd, axe, and battle-axe in his hands into his stomach with the head in the middle. Not long after, its body grew rapidly until it was as tall as the sky. Using his three heads, he spat out countless fine needles. The rain of needles that filled the sky was bright and flickering. However, they were suffused with a faint black light and looked extremely evil. A true sovereign's power. You, a divine monarch, can't block my attack. Chapter 2752. A true dominator's power? I don't think so. At most, it's only slightly stronger than an ordinary divine king's attack. With the help of the power of virtue, Knight Sorrow could sense the other party's attack. This attack was indeed very strong. Those black needles were indeed not something a divine king artifact could block. Even the Samsara halberd had been stored in the clear sky pagoda by Knight Sorrow. However, Knight Sorrow did not use the Tianyun bow in the face of this attack. Instead, he set up the virtuous dragonlock formation around himself and hid himself in a sealed space. Knight Sorrow had just set up the virtuous dragonlock formation around himself when the evil king shot out all the black needles. These needles were very powerful. Even the virtuous dragonlock formation could not restrain them. However, the black needles that passed through the power of virtue were all purified. As a result, the power of the rain of needles was reduced by 80%. Knight Sorrow, who was in the sealed space, took out the Samsara halberd and successfully blocked them. The power of virtue. This damned power of virtue is the nemesis of my dark abyss. Seeing that Knight Sorrow had used the power of virtue to neutralize the powerful attack of the rain of needles, the evil king angrily berated him. He was ready to attack again. At this moment, Knight Sorrow sneered. "Since you've finished attacking, it's my turn. It's just a shadow. Are you done yet?" With a cold snort, he took out the Heavenly Cloud Bow and Heavenly Cloud Arrow from his spatial artifact. He knocked the arrow and shot it at Evil King. What? This is a true Dominator artifact. A Divine Lord can actually have a Dominator artifact and use it at will. How is this possible? The summoned Evil King immediately shouted in shock when he saw that Knight Sorrow could use the Dominator artifact Tianyun Bow at will. Lord Evil King, quickly dodge. You can't take the Dominator artifact's power head-on. Taoist Wu Mao, who had only raised his head when he heard the Evil King's shout, was immediately shocked by the scene in front of him. The light emitted by the Heavenly Cloud Arrow, which was infused with the power of merit, dispelled the surrounding darkness. Even the figure of the Dark Abyss Demon King became blurry under the illumination of the golden light. The dark aura of the formation has been dispelled. This evil king's shadow has no way of dodging it. At this time, the three heads of the Dark Abyss Diablo all glared at Knight Sorrow and said, "Haha, ruler of the immortal domain, you have a complete sovereign artifact and defeated my shadow. But next time, the Dark Abyss army will descend upon this land. At that time, the entire immortal domain will be plunged into chaos. It's right in front of us." Yi Shang was threatened by the other party's words and immediately became bold. He shot out another arrow and directly shattered the evil king's body. The evil king, who had been summoned from the dark abyss, was killed instantly. Taoist Wu Mao, who was prostrating on the ground, immediately stood up. He has a complete sovereign artifact. We are no match for him. But he had to stall for time. Let's finish the devil summoning tower. As Taoist Wu Mao spoke, he glanced at the almost completed palace. Yes, husband, we will fight to the death. The three Sir Gods responded and used their secret techniques to raise their aura to the maximum. They charged at Knight Sorrow crazily. You want to self-destruct and injure me? You are too naive. Seeing the three divine lords charging at him recklessly as if they had gone mad, Yishan shook his head, took out 3 heavenly cloud arrows, and shot them one after another. The 3 heavenly cloud arrows immediately turned into golden light, and sent the 3 Sir Gods flying. They were killed instantly. Deity Realm Cultivator, you deserve to die. Taoist Wu Mao was so angry that he turned into a black clam and attached to the ground. Soon he merged with the ground and disappeared. What kind of technique is this? Night Sorrow, who was floating in the air, was stunned. Then he used the sea serpent's eye to observe the ground. He realized that under Tianyun Bao's interference, the effects of the sovereign artifact cover had been broken. He could see the other party's movements clearly. He immediately retrieved a heavenly cloud arrow and shot it at the ground. However, what surprised him was that the black clam moved very quickly. Even the heavenly cloud arrow could not catch up with it. This is a little troublesome. Night Sorrow's arrow did not succeed. He immediately shot another arrow. However, it also did not hit Taoist Wu Mao's black clam body. Moreover, the heavenly cloud arrow could not catch up with him at all. This made him feel a little strange. However, when Night Sorrow was about to attack again, he suddenly looked at the palace that was still under construction. He thought to himself, the battle has already reached this stage. Taoist Wu Mao has no chance of counterattacking. His subordinates are still building the palace. This doesn't make sense. Could it be that they are plotting something? Ha ha ha. You realize something is wrong? Let me tell you, it's too late. The Devil Summoning Pagoda that costs 180 million deity crystals has already been completed. Within 10,000 years, the army of the Dark Abyss will step onto the land of the immortal divine realm and devour everyone. At this moment, Taoist Wu Mao suddenly shouted in agitation. Then, without waiting for Night Sorrow to react, he continued, "Listen to my command, all of you, blood sacrifice." In an instant, he and the other dark creatures all chose to self-destruct. The black blood dyed the sparkling and translucent palace. The originally sparkling and translucent divine crystal palace was immediately dyed black by the black blood, and emitted a deep black light. I didn't expect to encounter such a thing on a simple hunting trip. Yin Tianyi, who had just walked out of the clear sky pagoda, said with a sigh, "This is not a bad thing. If we are not prepared, when the army of the Dark Abyss arrives one day, the consequences will be unimaginable." Night Sorrow said to Yin Tianyi and flew near the blackened palace. He observed and indeed saw a huge teleportation array and a summoning array at the bottom of the pagoda. These 2 arrays need to be inspected by someone who knows how to dismantle them. After observing the teleportation array and summoning array in front of him, Night Sorrow did not understand the array patterns and did not act rashly. At this moment, the small world they were in suddenly became unstable and began to shake non-stop. This earthquake-like shaking made Night Sorrow's heart palpitate. He took out the jar's body and realized that the jar's body was also shaking and looked like it was about to explode. Not good. Taoist Wu Mao has activated the lid and is preparing to make it explode. We need to leave this place immediately. Night Sorrow, who was holding the jar's body, felt something in his heart. If a Dominator artifact were to self-destruct, the power would be unimaginable. He immediately kept Yin Tianyi and the others back into the clear sky pagoda, and used the Tianyun Bao to pierce through the small world and enter the soundless ocean. Taoist Wu Mao actually activated the lid before he died. What's going on? Is he not afraid of destroying the 2 arrays? Chapter 2753. Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. It doesn't matter if Taoist no-hairs methods are powerful or not. Whether the Dark Abyss is powerful or not, we just need to quickly increase our strength. Yin Tianyi said from the clear heaven pagoda. He was rather optimistic. However, at this moment, Night Sorrow's expression changed. The self-destruction of a Dominator-grade artifact is no small matter. We can't escape like this. Next, I will enter the jar. He felt that if he continued to escape, he would definitely be affected by the explosion of the lid. Thus, he entered the space within the jar. The space within the jar was very simple. It was just a primitive small world. It was different from the complexity of the lid. Not long after Night Sorrow entered, the jar suffered a huge impact. Even though he was inside the Dominator-grade artifact, he still felt his heart palpitate. About an hour later, the situation outside stabilized. Night Sorrow left the small world and returned to the soundless ocean. He returned to the location where Daoist No Hair had set up the teleportation array and summoning array. He observed the two arrays. When they saw this, Yishang, Yin Tianyi, and the others fell silent. The explosion just now had destroyed almost everything in the surroundings. There was a destructive aura in the surroundings that made one sigh. However, when the two deity crystals were set up, the arrays that should have been very weak stood there unscathed. How can they be so sturdy? Holai didn't continue the conversation. Instead, he raised his hand and struck at the two formations. However, just as his palm wind approached, it was dissolved by the arrays. Seeing the situation in front of him, Night Sorrow said, "I'm guessing that the self-destruction of half a Dominator-grade artifact wasn't just to kill us. It was also to strengthen the two arrays in front of us. I'll use Tianyin Bao to try attacking and see the effect. If it really doesn't work, I'll invite Dominator Tianyi over to take a look." After saying that, Night Sorrow activated the Trayastrimsa Battle Mystic technique and poured his blood into Tianyin Bao. When Tianyin Bao's state changed, he shot an arrow at the summoning array. However, after a boom, the teleportation array was undamaged. What kind of method is this? Yin Tianyi immediately said in disbelief. Although Night Sorrow didn't completely activate Tianyin Bao, the attack of a Dominator-grade artifact didn't cause any damage to the arrays. This was too incomprehensible. I think it's very likely. Although we can see the two arrays in front of us, they might not be on the same plane. Because they're attacking the arrays, they don't cause any damage. After thinking, Night Sorrow felt that the arrays, and the arrays, and the arrays, and the arrays. And no hair. After observing for a while longer, they still couldn't find anything. Thus, they decided to give up and search for the heavenly void beast. The one he just discovered had the strength of a high god king. It shouldn't be easy to deal with. Yishang carefully searched the bottom of the soundless sea. Even if someone ambushed them, they wouldn't be able to sense it, so they returned to the battleship. They steered the battleship and sailed in the dark sea for a while. They didn't encounter any void beasts or other demonic beasts. Zhu Yinxia guessed. I think the explosion of the Dominator-grade artifact might have affected a large area and scared away all the demonic beasts. That's probably the truth. Night Sorrow nodded and steered the battleship to continue stealthily in the silent sea. Although their divine souls and five senses were still blocked, with the protection of the battleship's outer shell, everyone felt a sense of security. However, after traveling for a while, they suddenly saw a huge palace complex and immediately paid attention to it. Big Brother Night Sorrow, can you let me go out and sense it? Cowling immediately asked after seeing the palace complex not far away. Okay. In any case, there shouldn't be much danger in the battleship. Night Sorrow nodded and let Cowling out. He stopped the battleship in the mud at the bottom of the sea and camouflaged it. After being let out, Cowling used her two horns to sense and said, Big Brother Night Sorrow. Ling can sense that there should be something good behind the palace complex. Something good? What is it? Night Sorrow looked at Cowling and said. Cowling shook her head and sensed carefully. Then she said, It seems to be a pile of bones, but it should be very valuable. A pile of bones? Night Sorrow was puzzled. Then he suddenly became alert and said, Someone is coming from ahead. However, after seeing clearly, he shook his head and said, It's not a cultivator, but a void beast. Not just one, but two. There were actually 5 or 6 void beasts in front of them. One of them had an extremely astonishing aura. It should be the strength of the upper-level Divine King. Sensing the powerful aura released by the void beast, Night Sorrow said, In the Soundless Sea, not only is our speed affected, but our divine soul's perception ability has also become very poor. But these void beasts don't seem to be affected much. It seems to be like this. Yin Tianyi, who also came out of the Clear Heaven Pagoda, and came to the battleship, nodded. At this time he said doubtfully, But if the void beast's perception is stronger than ours, There's no reason not to sense our existence. This is because when I was refining the battleship, I set up concealment runes on the surface of the battleship. Otherwise, we would have been exposed long ago. Night Sorrow explained and looked at the few void beasts again. He guessed wrong and said, since there are so many void beasts here, it proves that the palace is very likely the territory of the void beasts. The bones that Ling mentioned are very likely the void beast bones that we are looking for. If we find an opportunity to go in and collect some, we don't need to hunt the void beasts. It saves us a lot of trouble. But there are so many void beasts around. It's not easy to take action. Divine soul power was not of much use. Gongchen looked around with his naked eyes and found that there were not only the void beasts in front of him, but also a few more in the distance. With so many people, there will definitely be more eyes. In any case, the battleship has concealment runes, so it's very safe for you to hide here. I'm going to sneak in alone. Night Sorrow, who was observing the palace, said. Hearing this, everyone's face changed. Yin Tianyi advised, Brother Yi, it's better not to go. With so many void beasts, the danger is too high. You're completely playing with your life. Although it's risky, it's worth it for the heaven and earth concealment array. Night Sorrow looked at Yin Tianyi and said, Everyone, don't worry. Before I leave the battleship, I will carefully set up concealment runes on my body, so that the void beasts won't find me so easily. Chapter 2754. I still feel that doing this is no different from barging into a tiger's den. It's not worth taking such a risk for a set of void beast bones. Seeing Night Sorrow preparing to leave the warship, Yin Tianyi opened his mouth to persuade. In his view, Night Sorrow's life was much more important than a set of void beast bones. Ho Lai felt that what Yin Tianyi said made a lot of sense. Looking at Night Sorrow, he said, Captain, what Brother Yin said is right. Just for a set of void beast bones, you're going deep into the void beast territory. If there are too many divine king level void beasts inside, or even void beast kings close to sovereign strength, that's very dangerous. What you all said makes sense, but for the safety of the immortal divine realm, it's fine for me to pay some personal price. Besides, I don't feel that I'll be killed so easily. Night Sorrow consoled everyone with a few words. Glancing at Cao Ling, he said, Everyone take good care of Ling. It's best to give her some pointers in cultivation. Relax. Yin Tianyi saw that Night Sorrow had already made up his mind, and did not persuade anymore. Regarding Cao Ling's matter, he agreed very readily. But after agreeing, he reacted and asked, Hearing your tone, you're preparing to go for a long time? Because if the time was short, there was no need to explain things like cultivation. Who knows how long I'll be gone for, but I'll try my best to return as soon as possible. After all, there's still a 10-year agreement with Aunt Fei. I don't want to miss the appointment. But when I go over, I'll leave behind the vast heaven pagoda. Letting Ling cultivate inside should be able to cultivate in peace for a while. Night Sorrow took out the vast heaven pagoda and placed it on the warship, saying, Also, if you encounter danger, you can control the warship and directly leave. No need to specially wait for me. Alright then. You must ensure your own safety. Zhu Yunxia and the rest nodded. They were all clear about Night Sorrow's temper. Before he left, each of them instructed a few words. After leaving the battleship, Night Sorrow waited for the nearby void beasts to leave before sneaking in the direction that Cao Ling had indicated. He knew that if he followed this direction, he would soon reach the edge of the palace complex. The palaces of the void beast were completely different from those of the royal family in the mortal world. The height of the palaces was almost as high as the sky, and they looked very majestic. When Night Sorrow entered, he was no different from an inconspicuous mosquito. Night Sorrow, who had activated the sea serpent's eye to observe, hadn't discovered any array patterns or encountered any void beasts. Combined with the situation of the void beasts just now, he judged that the void beasts should have gathered together. After exploring the palaces for a while, Night Sorrow realized that he was in a completely uninhabited place. He didn't encounter any void beasts at all. What's going on? This shouldn't be the case. Even if the entire clan leaves, shouldn't the corresponding array be activated? As they continued to approach the void beast bone, Night Sorrow felt more and more surprised. After all, he had seen several void beasts just now. As he went deeper, he used the sea serpent's eye to discover many array patterns, but the array formations weren't activated. However, what surprised Night Sorrow even more was yet to come. Even after he passed through the palaces and arrived at the void beast graveyard and saw dozens of void beast skeletons, not a single void beast appeared nearby. This was simply incomprehensible. Forget it. Since I'm here, I'll just take it as it comes. There were no void beasts around at all. He casually walked around the graveyard and chose high-grade void beast skeletons. In the end, he chose a complete high-grade Divine King void beast skeleton and stored it in a spatial Dharma artifact. Night Sorrow had never expected to obtain what he wanted so smoothly. When he walked out of the graveyard, he even laughed out loud. His luck was really good. However, at this moment, something strange happened. The graveyard where Night Sorrow was suddenly shook violently. Then, the huge graveyard split open into an endless abyss. What's going on? Everything had been going too smoothly. Now that there was a sudden change, Yishan immediately became alert. At the same time, an extremely gigantic void beast rose from the endless abyss. It was dozens of times larger than the void beast skeleton that he kept. It was a colossal creature that blotted out the sky. However, it was also just a skeleton. Human cultivator. After the gigantic void beast that was already in the form of a skeleton rose, it immediately called out to Night Sorrow. I'm a human cultivator. You are? Night Sorrow replied and asked at the same time. I'm the ancestor of the void beast race. My name is Su Changtian. I once transformed into a human and walked in the divine world. The void beast ancestor, Su Changtian, replied to Night Sorrow and continued. Today, I exhausted the last of my vitality to appear because the void beast race is in great danger. I want to ask for your help. Indeed, I didn't see any of your clansmen when I rushed over. Night Sorrow looked at the void beast ancestor floating in the air and asked, what happened? All of this happened because of me. Originally, I grew up in the dark abyss and was called the void nightmare beast there. However, one day, I unexpectedly came to the divine world and immediately fell in love with the soundless ocean, gradually washing away the aura of the dark creatures, to live a life of peace and tranquility. Later, I mated with the Tao Wu of the divine world and gave birth to the current void beast race. At this point, Su Changtian sighed and said, a few days ago, a ruler of the dark abyss sent a voice transmission to the void beasts, asking our race to help build a summoning formation. However, our race refused. However, they used some unknown method to attack the Tao Wu clan. The void beasts that we sent to help have all gone missing one after another. When they reappeared, they were all hung outside the walls of the Tao Wu clan. Our void beast race has all gone to rescue them. You want me to rush to the Tao Wu territory and help save the void beasts? After hearing Su Changtian's words, Night Sorrow asked. He was surprised that the other party was from the dark abyss. What surprised him was that the other party did not choose to help the ruler of the dark abyss. It's like this. I won't let you do it for free. Weren't you looking for the complete void hand bones just now? Su Changtian looked at Night Sorrow and said, if you agree to help, I will give you this skeleton. When I was alive, I was infinitely close to the ruler's strength, much stronger than the one in your hand. All right, I agree. However, why do you think I have the ability to help the void beasts? Night Sorrow asked in confusion. After Su Changtian appeared, he immediately treated him as a life-saving straw. This was something that he did not understand. I can feel that you are very strong, even stronger than the upper-level divine king of my race. In addition, I can sense the aura of a ruler's artifact on you. This can't be wrong, Su Changtian said and continued. I didn't expect you to agree so easily. Night Sorrow did not hesitate and chose to agree immediately because he felt that the Tao Wu clan's incident was very likely caused by the dark abyss. He wanted to eliminate all the creatures of the dark abyss for the divine world. He said calmly, in fact, dealing with the dark creatures is my responsibility. Chapter 2755. Void Beast progenitor Su Changtian sized up Night Sorrow and said, "If I hadn't died a long time ago, I'm afraid I would have a hard time facing your virtuous flames. You have virtuous merits, so you won't lie. Take my skeleton. I only hope that you can preserve the bloodline of the Void Beast tribe." Su Changtian said and landed on the ground. Night Sorrow looked at him and said, "Since you're still conscious, lead the way. We'll go straight to the Taowu tribe. After all, saving people is like putting out a fire." Because of his virtuous power, Night Sorrow could feel that Su Changtian's words were not false at all. "There's a teleportation formation near my tribe that leads to the Taowu tribe," Su Changtian said as he led Night Sorrow to the teleportation formation. "Although the Taowu tribe is not far from my tribe, the teleportation formation is faster." "Alright. Let's go." Night Sorrow looked at the location of the battleship. There was no movement there. He guessed that Yun Tianyi and the others should be safe, so he was not in a hurry to go back. He stepped onto the teleportation formation with Su Changtian, who had been dead for many years. After a dizzying light, Night Sorrow and Su Changtian appeared together in a hidden cave. At this time, Su Changtian transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow. "My body is too big. Put me in your spatial artifact. The remaining trace of my soul will attach itself to your fingertips and guide you." Okay. This time, Night Sorrow did not hold back. He directly put away the skeleton that had completely lost its vitality, but was still very strong. After Su Changtian attached himself to the tip of his little finger, Night Sorrow said, "There's not a single Void Beast tribe in the cave. They should have all gone out to fight, right?" "Should be. I wonder what the Dark Abyss has done this time." Su Changtian sighed. They were already very close to the Taowu tribe's territory, but he could not hear any sounds of battle. He was very worried about his descendants. "Let's see." Night Sorrow sent him a telepathic message and walked out of the cave along the stone wall. To be safe, he activated the Sea Serpent's Eye immediately. After observing, Night Sorrow immediately discovered that there was a vague concealment array at the entrance of the cave. Concealment array. There might be someone inside. Night Sorrow sent a voice transmission to Su Changtian. Then he cast the virtuous Dragonlock formation and locked the concealment formation in the sealed space. Then he would enter and destroy the concealment formation. Die. The moment the formation was broken, a High Divine Lord immediately rushed out from inside. He had the appearance of a human cultivator, but he was clearly under the control of a dark creature. His body was emitting a thick black aura. Everyone has the right to kill dark creatures. Night Sorrow sneered at his opponent who had stabbed him with his sword, and was emitting a dark aura. He took out his heavenly Samsara halberd and attacked. The King Grade Divine Artifact, the Reincarnation Heavenly Halberd, clashed with the Divine Lord Grade Divine Artifact, and the result was obvious. The humanoid body controlled by the dark creature was immediately smashed into the wall. At this moment, the dark creature completely left the body and attached itself to Night Sorrow, wanting to take control of his body. "You don't know what's good for you." Night Sorrow did not use the power of his astral body to resist. Instead, he used the power of virtue in his body to destroy the dark creature. However, it only had the strength of a divine lord. To the current Night Sorrow, absorbing its power of virtue would not increase his strength by much. "You attack so quickly, you shouldn't have been exposed, right?" Su Changtian said with relief when he saw Night Sorrow close in on the battle in an instant. "I shouldn't have been discovered, but all the Void Beasts who left here should have been exposed. They should be in bad condition," Night Sorrow said worriedly. "Sigh. The creatures of the Dark Abyss are extremely murderous. We have to hurry. Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable." Su Changtian's voice was trembling. He was obviously worried about his descendants. "They shouldn't have been killed so quickly. After all, before I entered the cemetery, I saw them." As Night Sorrow comforted him, he did not stop and walked out of the cave. At this moment, he remembered that he still had the concealment runes on him. He immediately activated the runes and walked out of the cave. After walking out of the cave, Night Sorrow found himself in the depths of a mountain range so high that the peak could not be seen. There was no aura of life nearby. Therefore, he asked Su Changtian, "Next, where should we go? I'm basically invisible now." I can go almost anywhere. Then let's fly directly into the void and observe the surrounding terrain. I haven't been here for many years, but if I remember correctly, the territory of the Tao Wu clan is directly north, Su Changtian replied. I originally thought that we would be teleported directly into the territory of the Tao Wu clan, Night Sorrow said as he flew into the void and looked down through the clouds. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, he did not use his astral body. When he looked into the distance, Night Sorrow's expression immediately changed. On the city wall of the Tao Wu clan, the void beasts that had taken human form had all been beheaded. The Taoists that appeared near the city wall were all controlled by the dark creatures, just like the one in the concealment formation. Some of their eyes were pure black, while others were dark red. Every one of their eyes looked very ferocious. Those that didn't take human form looked like lions that had gone berserk. Bastard! These dark creatures really had the nature of extinction. It's a pity that I, Su Changtian, am completely dead. Otherwise, I would definitely kill my way to the dark abyss and take revenge. Su Changtian looked at the scene in front of him and said fiercely. He had used 2,000 reincarnations to remove all the dark aura of his descendants, but the dark creatures only took a few days to almost wipe out the tribe he had built. This kind of despair made Su Changtian feel very uncomfortable. If what you said just now was true, I have a way to bring you back to life, Night Sorrow immediately said when he heard Su Changtian's words. At this time, Su Changtian's astral body was still in the third zone. He had the secret technique of the Trayastrimsa astral body. If he imparted it, Su Changtian's astral body could completely recover after a long period of cultivation. At that time, as long as he consumed the heavenly 1000 transformation pill like Mo Yuqian and the others, he would be able to recover. Impossible. I'm completely dead. How could I still be alive? Su Changtian did not believe Night Sorrow's words at all. After all, he had lost his Dantian and Spirit Sea. You said it yourself. I'm the virtuous Divine Lord. If I don't lie, why would I lie to you? Night Sorrow replied Su Changtian and continued. But to save you there is a prerequisite. Chapter 2756. I need you to swear a heavenly oath. Swear that you will never do anything to harm the immortal dominion, or the immortal dominion. In addition, if I need to, I will summon you one day to go to another realm with me. Night Sorrow said. He was not thinking about himself or the immortal dominion. If he could successfully complete the heaven and earth concealment formation, the safety of the immortal dominion would not be a problem. He was thinking about the eternal supreme world. Su Changtian's strength was only half a step away from the sovereign level. If he was tempered by the eternal supreme world, he could probably become a sovereign and fight alongside him. I have no reason not to agree to your request. Save me, and I will repay you with my life, Su Changtian said confidently. He did not expect that he would have a chance to be reborn with only a sliver of his soul left. How long can this sliver of your soul last? Night Sorrow asked. If he could not hold on for long, he was ready to teach him the secret art of the 33 heaven star souls. Su Changtian pondered for a moment and said, If I don't fight, I can hold on for another 5 or 6 years. To half-step sovereigns who had endless lifespans, living for another 5 or 6 years was no different from dying. Hearing this, Night Sorrow said, After saving the rest of your people, you can give me a good explanation. I will take you with me in the future. All right. Whether I succeed or not, I, Su Changtian, will never forget the kindness I have shown you. In fact, Su Changtian's sliver of soul did not have the ability to save the void beasts. Suddenly meeting Night Sorrow was the last straw he could grasp. I have already activated the concealment formation on my body. I am almost invisible, but if I meet someone stronger than the Divine King, I will definitely be discovered. Therefore, the battle will come soon. You'd better enter my spatial artifact. It will be safer that way. After saying this to Su Changtian, Night Sorrow used the dark sky wandering dragon technique and headed toward the Swanee tribe's territory. Although he was protected by the concealment formation, it was almost certain that he would be discovered. However, he was not afraid. After crossing the city wall, he began to search for the survivors of the void beasts or the Swanee tribe. Less than an hour later, Night Sorrow found them in the territory of the Swanee race. The reason for that was because the people of the Dark Clan had actually set up an enormous summoning formation in the territory of the Swanee clan. During the construction process, the survivors of the Void Beast clan were continuously bled and turned into the adhesive for the construction of the summoning formation. Moreover, some dead Void Beasts were even used as materials due to their special attributes. There was only one high-level God King and 5 Sir Gods left. At that moment, they had all transformed into their human forms and were bound to the pillars beside the summoning circle. There were formations all around, and a large number of dark creatures standing guard. The dark creatures present not only controlled some of the Louis clan's members, but also some who were completely dark creatures. Their bodies emitted a strong evil aura, giving people an extremely unrestrained feeling. After a rough scan, Night Sorrow discovered that there were at least 4 dark divine kings here. Apart from the miserable Void Beasts, the Swanee tribe was not much better off. Most of their members had been corrupted by the dark creatures. The remaining few had also become materials for the construction of the summoning formation. A half-step divine king Swanee was being cruelly bled. It was obviously a blood sacrifice. After the blood sacrifice of this half-step divine king Swanee, a half-step divine king dark creature was immediately summoned from the center of the summoning formation that had not yet been completed. Very good. As long as there is a blood sacrifice, it can be used. Our thousands of reincarnation cycles of hiding in the divine world were not in vain. It won't be long before the warriors of the dark abyss completely descend upon the divine world and devour the weak creatures of the divine world. Seeing the pagoda-shaped summoning formation summon another dark creature, one of the dark divine kings Swanee laughed sinisterly. His laughter seemed to have come from hell, causing people's hearts to palpitate. Bastard! When I, Su Changtian, am resurrected, I will definitely slaughter my way into the dark abyss. Su Changtian, who was in Night Sorrow's spatial artifact, was enraged when he saw the dark creatures treating the Void Beasts and Swanee tribe so cruelly. However, at this moment, he was completely powerless. He could only ask, "What should we do next? There are at least 4 divine kings Swanee. I'm afraid you, a lower divine lord, can't handle them all. Even if we can't handle them, we have to try our best. If we let them continue, who knows how many dark creatures they will summon." The Void Beasts and Swanee tribe all had divine king Swanee. If the dark creatures summoned 2 more divine kings, it would be even more difficult to deal with them. Night Sorrow felt that he had to make a prompt decision and take action. "It seems like I can only rely on your sovereign artifact and power of virtue." Su Changtian's emotions were unstable. He was very angry at himself for not being able to contribute. Back then, he had failed to break through to the sovereign realm. Since then, his life force had been constantly weakening. Now he was even weaker than the Feather God. For me, facing the dark creatures, my combat strength will be much stronger. It's not like there's no chance at all. However, this battle will be very difficult for me if I rely on myself. I have to think of a way to save the Divine King of the Void Beasts and the Divine King of the Swanee tribe. Night Sorrow opened his mouth and said, then moved stealthily toward the Divine King of the Void Beasts. There's the aura of human cultivators. However, when he was still some distance away, one of the Divine King Swanee dark creatures suddenly roared. Although it did not discover Night Sorrow's figure, it smelled the scent of celestial realm cultivators in the air. Alert! Find the human cultivators and control them. This king wants to see what the effect of a blood sacrifice of human cultivators is. If we can also summon dark warriors of the same level, then we can continue to hunt down the cultivators of the celestial realm, slaughter the city, sacrifice billions of people, and summon an army. Another Divine King Swanee dark creatures said cruelly. These dark creatures were not of the same race as the ones in the Soundless Ocean, but their motives were similar, which was to harm the celestial realm. Hearing this, Night Sorrow immediately flew into a rage. How could he watch as these dark creatures wreaked havoc in the celestial realm? However, among the 4 dark divine kings, there were 2 upper divine kings, 1 middle divine king, and 1 lower divine king. If Night Sorrow were to fight them head-on, he would probably be under a lot of pressure. He stood where he was and took out the Tianyan bow and the heavenly cloud arrow, shooting them at the divine king of the void beasts and the Swanee tribe respectively, preparing to help them break free. The two heavenly cloud arrows were wrapped in the power of virtue. When they were shot out, they immediately broke the black gas binding the two divine kings. However, Night Sorrow had also completely exposed himself. Chapter 2757. A Divine Emperor with the Power of Virtue. He's Night Sorrow, the ruler of the immortal divine realm. Today, we must take him down at all costs. Seeing Night Sorrow suddenly appear and rescue the two divine kings from the Void Beast race and the Swanee race, the leader of the Dark Abyss, the divine king of Inferno Fury, immediately roared. These creatures from the Dark Abyss were preparing to wreak havoc in this area, so they naturally paid attention to what was happening around them. They knew that Night Sorrow had become the master of this area. Yes, leader. The other upper divine king, Inferno Divine King, immediately turned from human to Inferno Demon and attacked Night Sorrow. His entire body was made of flames, and his casual attack was like lava spewing out. Good timing. Have a taste of my flames. Night Sorrow put away the Tianyan bow, took out the heavenly Samsara halberd, and attacked his opponent. The moment the Inferno Demon slaying halberd was used, scorching flames filled the void and clashed with the divine king of Inferno Fury. Whoosh! The collision between the two didn't create much noise, but the terrifying flames instantly burned the clouds in the sky red. Some of the Dark Abyss creatures nearby were even burned to death. Leader. He's strong. He's not an ordinary divine emperor. Just in case, please help him. The divine king of Inferno Fury was evil and murderous, but he wasn't confident that he could take down Night Sorrow, so he directly asked the divine king of Inferno Fury to help him. Even if you don't ask, I'll help him. The divine king of Inferno Fury was already prepared to help. The moment the divine king of Inferno Fury finished speaking, he, who had turned into human form, shot toward Night Sorrow like an arrow. An expert who specializes in close combat? Seeing the divine king of Inferno Fury rushing toward him, Night Sorrow was first stunned. Then he laughed and said, just in time. After coming to the God realm, he really hadn't experienced many close combat battles. Now that he was facing a divine king of the upper divine king level, he was filled with fighting spirit. You overestimate yourself. You are an outstanding existence among the divine lords. But in the eyes of the divine king, they were nothing but ants. Today, I will tear you to shreds, you worm. When the divine king of Flame Fury saw that Night Sorrow did not choose to dodge and met him head-on, he immediately revealed a contemptuous smile. In his human form, he looked extremely cold to begin with. Now he looked even more terrifying. However, facing him, Night Sorrow didn't have any fear. He sneered and said, creatures of the Dark Abyss should stay in the abyss. Anyone who tried to cause trouble in the God realm, they will all be killed. With a loud shout, Night Sorrow activated the Treastrimsa secret battle technique, and completely activated the Blue Phoenix battle armor. He started fighting with the Divine King of Flame Fury. At the side, Divine King Flameskill was stunned for a moment before he joined the battle as well. He relied on his secret treasures and divine artifacts to pressure Night Sorrow. The Divine King of the Void Beast race, Su Xiaoye, who had been rescued by Night Sorrow, was fighting with another Divine King of the Dark Abyss. The Divine King of the Swanee race was also fighting with another Divine King of the Dark Abyss, just like Su Xiaoye. Although the two of them had escaped the shackles of darkness, they were still very weak. With the strength of a Divine King, they could barely resist the attacks of a Divine King of a Divine King, and a Divine King of a Divine King of a Divine King. They didn't have much of an advantage. Looking at the two of them, Night Sorrow knew that they definitely didn't have the strength to help him. Facing the Divine King of Flame Fury and the Divine King of Inferno Fury on his own, he immediately poured his blood into Tianyan Bao. With the support of Night Sorrow's blood, Tianyan Bao was quickly activated. At this moment, Night Sorrow saw that the dark creatures were attacking in large numbers. He immediately used his absolute command ability, causing all the dark creatures below the Divine Monarch realm to be killed by the lightning tribulation. Bastard! What kind of method is this? Before Night Sorrow shot out the sky cloud arrow, he actually said that all the high gods and feather gods of the dark abyss would die. This reduced the number of dark creatures of the dark abyss to less than 1 in 10,000. Seeing this, the divine king of flame fury immediately flew into a rage. This was because it wasn't easy for the dark creatures of the dark abyss to successfully come to the divine world. For example, he was originally at the peak of the divine king realm, a major character with half a foot in the sovereign realm. However, after going through untold hardships to come to the divine world, his strength had dropped to the level of a normal high divine king. Flame Fury Rampage. Flame Fury, who specialized in progressive attacks, immediately attacked crazily after being enraged. Facing him, Night Sorrow didn't fall into a disadvantage because his body was very strong, not inferior to the divine king's level. He smiled and said hundreds of thousands died in one go. If I'm not wrong, the evil creatures of the dark abyss only have 38 divine monarchs and above left. Yes, so what? Go to hell. Seeing that Night Sorrow and the divine king of flame fury were evenly matched, the divine king of flame slaughter once again shot a fire attack at Night Sorrow. This time, the fire attack contained the origin of the dark abyss. Even Night Sorrow immediately felt the pressure. What a terrifying fire attack. Night Sorrow immediately became alert when he sensed the fire attack from the divine king of flame slaughter. However, he didn't choose to dodge. Instead, he used the activated Tianyun Bao to block in front of him. Buzz! The moment the fire burned, Tianyun Bao's bowstring vibrated automatically, dispersing the fire that was burning toward Night Sorrow. The golden light that was released shot directly toward the divine king of flame slaughter. How can a puny divine monarch activate a sovereign divine weapon? Fortunately, it doesn't have an artifact spirit. Otherwise, we would all die. In the face of Tianyun Bao's golden light, the divine king of flame slaughter didn't dare to take it head-on. He immediately fled into the void. However, the golden light seemed to have a life of its own. It chased after him without any intention of stopping. Be careful of the sovereign divine weapon's attack. I will deal with this Night Sorrow myself. The divine king of flame fury understood that the backlash from the sovereign divine weapon wasn't easy to deal with. He immediately transmitted his voice to the divine king of flame slaughter, telling him to be at ease. Meanwhile, he took out a blood-dripping saber from his spatial artifact. He sneered and said, "This saber has just drunk the blood of the Void Beast clan and the Swanni clan. Now it's your turn, divine monarch of merit, Night Sorrow." "Stop dreaming." Night Sorrow coldly replied to the divine king of flame fury. Then he held the dim Tianyun Bao in his hand and shot it toward his opponent. Because he had just shot out the yellow light, the originally activated Tianyun Bao fell into a sealed state again. However, the heavenly cloud arrow that Night Sorrow shot out still contained a tremendous amount of power. In the face of Night Sorrow's heavenly cloud arrow, the divine king of flame fury was slightly surprised at first. Then he slashed at the heavenly cloud arrow with his saber. Boom! The divine king of flame fury's saber slashed at the heavenly cloud arrow, and actually repelled it. This surprised Night Sorrow greatly. Chapter 2758. The moment the heavenly cloud arrow was deflected, Night Sorrow discovered that the material of the divine king's saber was actually at the sovereign grade. However, its refining method was extremely crude, so it wasn't at the sovereign grade. What? Did you discover something special about my saber? Seeing Night Sorrow's reaction, Yennu let out a low, cold snort and swung the saber in his hand again. I just feel that you creatures of the dark abyss are too weak in refining weapons. I feel pity for the materials in your hands. Yennu split the heavenly cloud arrow with one strike, thinking that a divine lord using a sovereign-grade weapon wouldn't be much of a threat to him. Night Sorrow immediately took out 5 heavenly cloud arrows, and shot out 5 elemental arrows. The aura of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth all carried the aura of the divine world's origin. The terrifying might came from the horizon. Not good. There's something special about this arrow technique. Facing Tianyun Bao's 5 elemental arrows, the divine king immediately felt that something was wrong. Under such circumstances, he made a prompt decision and took out a jade talisman and threw it in the direction of the heavenly cloud arrow. Buzz. The extremely powerful 5 elemental arrows were instantly neutralized by the jade talisman in front of him. Seeing the situation before him clearly, Yishan immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. The jade talisman just now was made by a sovereign. However, the jade talisman itself couldn't withstand the full power of a sovereign, so the power of the attack was slightly weaker. Heavy losses, but fortunately, he didn't use the jade talisman to attack me. After the jade talisman was used, all 5 heavenly cloud arrows were destroyed. This made Night Sorrow's heart ache. There were only a total of 9 heavenly cloud arrows strengthened by the sovereign stone. After losing 5, it was impossible for him to use 5 elemental arrows again. What should I do? Night Sorrow observed the other 3 divine kings in the dark abyss. He discovered that the yellow light shot by Tianyun Bao was no longer powerful, and the divine king was about to break free. The other 4 divine king were still locked in a stalemate. He thought for a moment, and then he made up his mind and said, "My strength is at a disadvantage, and I can mainly rely on my virtue energy and formidable divine artifacts. The damage to the heavenly cloud arrow is indeed great, but I can still summon it." After pondering for a moment, Night Sorrow summoned the jar of the sovereign artifact from his spatial artifact. Activating his divine essence energy, he blasted it towards the divine king Yin Nu. Although the jar was severely damaged and looked like it could collapse at any moment, after it was blasted out, Yin Nu immediately felt threatened. It said in surprise, "I didn't expect that a mere divine lord like you would be richer than some rulers. You can take out a sovereign artifact as you please. What you can't imagine is yet to come." While the divine king of fire fury was fighting against the earthen jar, Night Sorrow held the remaining 4 sky cloud arrows in his hand. At the same time, the heavenly samsara halberd shrunk and turned into an arrow. He shot out another 5-element arrow. Although the heavenly samsara halberd was not a sky cloud arrow, it was much more powerful on its own. Combined with the other 4 sky cloud arrows, it was no weaker than the previous attack. Facing this attack, the divine king of fire fury immediately widened his eyes. He only had 1 jade talisman in his hand, and it had already been used. Facing the earthen jar and the 5-element arrow, he had no confidence in blocking them. The divine king of fire slaughter had just escaped from the pursuit of Tianyun Bao's light. He immediately took out a black umbrella from his spatial artifact and smashed it towards the earthen jar. The black umbrella emitted rays of black light, suppressing the earthen jar and forming a stalemate. "Lord Leader, Fire Slaughter has done his best. The rest is up to you." After binding the earthen jar, the divine king of fire slaughter transmitted his voice to the divine king of fire fury. "All right. I'll try my best. You're just a divine lord." The divine king of fire fury only mentioned the divine king, and not the dominator divine weapon. Clearly, he was trying to encourage himself. Facing the 5-element arrow, he made up his mind and said coldly, "You underestimate my ability." After saying this, Fire Fury immediately threw out the battle blade in his hand, causing the Dominator divine weapon to self-destruct in the void. Boom. After a loud explosion, the void was destroyed beyond recognition. The 5-element arrows shot out by Night Sorrow were all shot down. Among them, the 4 sky cloud arrows were all destroyed. Although the heavenly samsara halberd was made of special materials and was not damaged, it was still impacted. Kiki. Without the help of the Dominator divine weapon, you are definitely not my match. After self-destructing the divine weapon, the divine king of fire fury revealed a sinister smile. Its murderous intent made people feel terrified. However, Night Sorrow did not show any fear. He charged forward with the Tianyun Bao in his hand. He directly turned the Tianyun Bao into a close combat weapon. Facing the self-destructing divine king of fire fury, Night Sorrow had the Tianyun Bao in his hand, so he was not afraid of the other party in close combat. The divine king of fire fury, who was in human form like Night Sorrow, was at a disadvantage and immediately transformed into its original form. Its original form was very tall, like a dark blue mountain, and there were 9 mouths on its head. After transforming into its original form, the divine king of fire fury immediately used its 9 mouths to spit out flames. These 9 mouths all spat out black flames, but they had different attributes. Su Changtian, who was hiding in Night Sorrow's spatial artifact, immediately warned, "Night Sorrow, be careful. It spits out 9 types of evil flames from the abyss magic pool. It is very corrosive, and if it touches your skin, your flesh will rot." "Don't worry. I will be careful." As Night Sorrow replied, he noticed that the Divine King of Fire Slaughter was faintly suppressing the clay pot. On the other side, the 4 God Kings were still locked in battle. Not a single one of them was able to lend him a helping hand. He made up his mind, and while dodging the 9 types of flames, he poured a large amount of blood into the Tianyan Bao. He even poured his heart's blood into it. He activated the Tianyan Bao again. Buzz. After a huge tremor between heaven and earth, the Tianyan Bao was activated again. This time, he did not have a single arrow in his hand, and the heavenly Samsara halberd was also severely damaged. Night Sorrow suddenly released the power of virtue in his body, turning it into the shape of an arrow, and used the Tianyan Bao to shoot at the Divine King of Fire Fury and the Divine King of Fire Slaughter. Yi Shang roared as the arrow of virtue was shot out. "Damn it! Damn it!" He used the green rock soul-rending roar towards the Divine Kings of Darkness who were watching the battle from afar, but did not dare to make a move. In an instant, Night Sorrow brought pressure to the Divine King of Fire Fury, the Divine King of Fire Slaughter, and the Divine Kings of Darkness present. "Not good. Lord Leader, I can't stop it." At this time, the Divine King of Fire Slaughter, who was resisting the clay pot, immediately shouted. He realized that he could not stop the arrow of virtue at all. In fact, it was not only him, but Fire Fury also realized that the situation was not simple. Chapter 2759. I can't block it either. The Divine King of Fire Fury also panicked when he saw the arrow of virtue shooting toward him. Although he was very strong, he had used a lot of energy to come to the divine world from the dark abyss. He had less than 1/10 of his strength left. He had a high level of comprehension, but he couldn't display his true strength. The Divine King of Fire Fury felt very aggrieved at this moment. The Divine King of Fire Slaughter, who was resisting the clay jar, felt even worse. He couldn't escape at all. He could only watch as the arrow of virtue shot into his body. The arrow of virtue didn't make much noise when it pierced through the Divine King of Fire Slaughter. However, his dark body was immediately purified into a golden color. Fire Slaughter roared. "You want to kill me? I, the Divine King, won't let you have it easy." He then chose to self-detonate. However, his self-detonation had no effect on Night Sorrow. It only bombarded the clay jar. The clay jar was already severely damaged. After being bombarded by the self-detonation of a Divine King, the cracks on it became even more terrifying. It looked like it was about to shatter completely. As for the self-detonation of the Divine King of Fire Slaughter, the final result was that he turned into the power of virtue and was absorbed by Night Sorrow. After absorbing the power of virtue of the Divine King of Fire Slaughter, Night Sorrow felt that the power of virtue in his body was increasing rapidly. However, it was still some distance away from reaching the level of a mid-level Divine Lord. However, Night Sorrow judged that if he could kill all the Dark Divine King of Fire Slaughter and all the other Divine Lords present, there was a high chance that his power of virtue would reach the level of a mid-level Divine Lord. This speed of increase in strength was unprecedented. However, Night Sorrow, who had experienced a great battle, didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. His foundation was also very stable. "Even if I die, I won't let you have it easy. Everyone heed my command. All Divine Kings and Divine Lords, attack Night Sorrow and end this trip to the Divine Realm with self-destruction." Facing the arrow of virtue, the Divine King of Fire Fury, who had no way of dealing with it, gave his subordinates one last order before he self-destructed. Following that, it chose to self-destruct as well. However, unlike the Divine King of Blazing Slaughter, a portion of the Divine King of Blazing Fury's self-destruction was still directed at Night Sorrow, even though the arrow of virtue had consumed most of its energy. So much energy was consumed by the arrow of virtue, but there was still so much power left in the explosion. It seems that it must have been very powerful when it was at its peak. Night Sorrow, who was affected by the Divine King's explosion, immediately used the virtuous Dragon Lock Array to seal himself in a sealed space. The Divine King of Flame Fury's self-detonation smashed into the virtuous dragon-locking formation and immediately shattered the sealed space. However, the remaining energy was not that terrifying, and Night Sorrow easily withstood it. After withstanding the Divine King of Blazing Fury's final attack, a large amount of virtuous energy immediately surged into his body, causing his virtuous energy to swell and take a step closer to becoming a mid-level Divine Lord. In another change, the two Dark Divine Kings fighting against the Void Beast Divine King and the Bai and Divine King received orders from the Divine King of Blazing Fury and cooperated with the other Divine Lords to charge at Night Sorrow. The ferocity of their self-detonation made one's heart palpitate. However, Night Sorrow chose to use Tianyun Bao to block at the critical moment. With Tianyun Bao's counterforce, the shockwaves from the self-detonation did not cause too much of a commotion and dissipated. However, the virtuous energy that these dark creatures had turned into filled Night Sorrow's body and raised his virtuous energy to the level of a mid-level Divine Lord. After stabilizing himself for a while, he felt his entire body relax. Night Sorrow, you're truly getting stronger the more you fight. Su Changtian couldn't help but sigh in praise when he discovered that Night Sorrow's virtuous energy had risen from a low-level Divine Lord to a mid-level Divine Lord. Your strength is rising very quickly, but the prerequisite is that you kill the dark creatures and not be killed. Night Sorrow knew that he was one step closer to becoming a Divine King, and his emotions were somewhat complicated. After replying to Su Changtian, he looked at the Divine King of the Void Beast race, Su Xiaoye, and the Divine King of the Bai and race Ma Yingjun. He asked, "How do the two of you feel?" "Many thanks for saving us. I will never forget the favor of saving us." The Void Beast race's Divine King, Su Xiaoye, and the Bai and race's Divine King Ma Yingjun were both taken aback for a moment before cupping their hands and bowing to Night Sorrow. "There's no need for the two of you to be so polite. Killing the dark creatures is the duty of the Divine World's cultivators." Night Sorrow said politely, then regretfully said, "It's a pity that I came too late. Your races have suffered great losses." "Benefactor, can you tell us your name and origin?" The Void Beast race's Divine King, Su Xiaoye, immediately asked after Night Sorrow spoke. After being saved, he naturally wanted to repay the favor. At this time, the Baiyan race's Divine King, Ma Yingjun, also spoke. "If not for Benefactor's rescue, my Baiyan race would have been wiped out today. Please tell us your name. In the future, my Baiyan race will repay this favor." "My name is Night Sorrow, the Domain Lord of the Immortal Divine Realm." Night Sorrow replied. Su Xiaoye and Ma Yingjun exchanged a look when they heard this. The two of them had heard that Hegemon Tianai had gifted this area to the Immortal Divine Realm. They hadn't expected to meet under such circumstances. Su Xiaoye thanks Domain Lord Night Sorrow. "From today onwards, my Baiyan race will be at your disposal." Su Xiaoye didn't think too much about it. He bowed again to Night Sorrow and handed over a jade tablet. In human form, he no longer had the aura of a dark creature. Sensing the pure energy of the Divine King, Night Sorrow nodded and said, "If there's a need, I'll ask." In addition, the creatures of the Dark Abyss have built a teleportation formation and a summoning formation in the Soundless Ocean. I don't know when they'll descend upon us. Is there no way to dismantle those two formations? Su Xiaoye immediately asked when he heard that. It's probably impossible to rely on brute force. I'll contact Hegemon Tianai after this and see if he has a way. Night Sorrow said, then looked at Ma Yingjun, who was about to speak, and said, "The Baiyan race has suffered great losses. There's no need for you to promise Night Sorrow anything. As long as you can focus on developing your race and recover, I'll be very happy." Ma Yingjun promises Domain Lord Night Sorrow that I won't make a move against the Immortal Divine Realm as long as I live. Furthermore, if the Immortal Divine Realm is in danger, I'll lead the Bai and race to assist with all my strength. Ma Yingjun swore an oath to the heavens. If not for Night Sorrow's appearance today, his entire Baiyan race would have been sacrificed. That would have been the end of his race. The gratitude he felt for Night Sorrow couldn't be described with words. Chapter 2760. Great Ancestor? It's you? You're still alive. That's great, that's great. Su Xiaoya knelt on the ground excitedly when he saw Su Changtian. Su Changtian had died a few hundred reincarnations ago, so he did not expect to see him again. I'm dead, but Night Sorrow has a way to bring me back to life. From now on, the Void Beast clan will fight for the immortal dominion. Su Changtian's tone was firm as he gave the order. Yes. Xiaoya will follow the great ancestor's order. Su Changtian's aura could not be faked. Su Xiaoya was very sure that he was the real Su Changtian. He felt a little sad facing the great ancestor. Originally, he was not the only God King in the Void Beast clan. However, the other two God Kings had already been sacrificed. Xiaoya, don't despair. When we first arrived in the divine world, the great ancestor was the only great ancestor. Didn't we still develop? In the future, I will disappear for a period of time. When I reappear, I hope to see the Void Beast clan rise again under your leadership. Su Changtian knew what Su Xiaoya was thinking, so he encouraged him. Su Xiaoya, who was kneeling on the ground, looked determined when he heard that. Xiaoya will not let you down, great ancestor. All right. Take the remaining members of the Void Beast clan and return to the palaces. Take all the resources and follow Night Sorrow to the immortal dominion. Su Changtian said one last thing before returning to Night Sorrow's spatial artifact. He could not use too much energy, or he would not be able to recover even with the secret technique of the 33 astral souls. Yes. Su Xiaoya replied respectfully. He then looked at Night Sorrow and said, Dominion Night Sorrow, Xiaoya is going to bring the Void Beast clan to the immortal dominion. I hope you will not mind. Haha. Clan leader Xiaoya, don't say that. The immortal dominion will provide a place for the Void Beast clan to develop again. Night Sorrow promised. He wouldn't bring Su Xiaoya and the others to the Domain Master's Manor, because the Domain Master's Manor in the Undying Divine region would remain a mystery. Ma Yingjun was slightly tempted when he saw that Su Xiaoya had chosen to join Night Sorrow. However, he quickly rejected the idea. The Ma Yingjun tribe was arrogant and unruly. They preferred to develop on their own. After bidding farewell to Ma Yingjun, Night Sorrow and Su Xiaoya led the remaining members of the Void Beast race back to their ancestral grounds, the group of palaces. When they approached the group of palaces, Su Xiaoya said, Actually, this group of palaces wasn't built by my Void Beast clan. That's why many of the formations can't be activated. So that's how it is. I was wondering why there wasn't a single formation here. After hearing Su Xiaoya's explanation, Night Sorrow's doubts were finally resolved. After finding the vast heaven pagoda, and confirming that Yuntiani, Cao Linger, and the others were all safe, Night Sorrow opened his mouth to ask, Patriarch Howling Moon, do you know who established this cluster of palaces? I'm really not sure about that. However, I can bring you into the core area. You can make your own judgment. Su Xiaoya replied. Then he ordered the remaining members of the Void Beast race to use their spatial artifacts to collect everything they had accumulated, and some other things. Meanwhile, he led Night Sorrow and the others into a secret realm. As soon as they entered the secret realm, Cao Linger's eyes lit up. She said, There's a very dense aura of treasures here. There seems to be a Dominator-grade artifact below. What? A Dominator-grade artifact is so worthless? After hearing Cao Linger's words, Night Sorrow wasn't the only one who was stunned. Yin Tianyi, Ho Lai, and the others were speechless. Su Xiaoya looked at Cao Linger in surprise and said, Are you sure about what you said? I'm from the Horn tribe. I never lie. Cao Linger glanced at Su Xiaoya and said, I didn't expect a Dominator-grade artifact to be hidden under the Void Beast race's territory. Su Xiaoya said excitedly. Then he said, Since the Dominator was the one who discovered this artifact, you should be the one to collect it. Since it was discovered in the Void Beast race's territory, it should belong to you. Clan leader Xiaoya, go ahead and check it out. Night Sorrow shook his head and gave the opportunity to Su Xiaoya. That's not good. Su Xiaoya hurriedly refused. Don't delay it anymore. Go. Night Sorrow had his own principles. He spoke again and asked Su Xiaoya to go ahead and check it out. Since he couldn't delay it, Su Xiaoya said, I'll go ahead and check it out. After collecting it, we can discuss how to split it. That's fine too. Night Sorrow nodded. After receiving a response, Su Xiaoya immediately dived down. He was a little surprised by Night Sorrow's generosity. After all, no one could refuse a Dominator-grade artifact. However, after diving down, Su Xiaoya soon discovered that he couldn't obtain the Dominator-grade artifact below. This was because it was in an activated state, and was controlled by the artifact's spirit. It had an owner. It was guarding its owner who was about to awaken. After being warned by the artifact's spirit, Su Xiaoya reluctantly returned to the surface and told Night Sorrow and the others what had happened. A Dominator-grade artifact guarding its owner. It seems like it's at least a Dominator-grade being. It's very likely that he or his race built this place. Night Sorrow guessed. He felt that if Su Xiaoya's words were correct, then the entire palace might have been built by the being below. Should we continue to investigate? Yin Tianyi, who hadn't spoken for a long time, asked. Then she continued. I don't think there's a need to investigate the owner of the palace. Since there's someone sleeping below, let's leave immediately. Night Sorrow said to the others after sensing the existence below with his divine spirit. He didn't sense the aura of a dark creature. Alright. Let's return to the immortal sacred realm. The three of us will prepare to break through to the godly monarch realm when we return. Zhu Yunxia said. After coming out, Shi Holai and Gengchen had suffered a huge blow. They felt that those below the godly monarch realm were ants that couldn't do anything. Alright. I'll provide everyone with sufficient resources. Night Sorrow looked at Zhu Yunxia, Holai and Gengchen and said, I understand that you want to break through quickly. However, the biggest taboo in cultivation is to advance rashly. Remember to accumulate resources. Otherwise, the gains won't make up for the losses. Captain, don't worry. We know what we're doing. Holai smiled. When they were in the divine feather realm, their cultivation level was higher than Night Sorrow's, but now, the tables had turned. Moreover, Night Sorrow had killed the divine king of the dark abyss with the help of the Dominator-grade artifact and the power of virtue. It was impossible for them not to be envious, but they knew their own limits. It seems like the relationship between the members of the Immortal Dominion is different from other factions. Interesting. Chapter 2761. After returning to the Immortal Divine Realm, Night Sorrow led Su Xiaoya and the other void beasts to a natural lake. He gave them the area within a few 100,000 miles to develop on their own. The void beasts led by Su Xiaoya had originally lived at the bottom of the Soundless Ocean, a place that couldn't see the light of day. Now that they were officially in the God world, he was in a good mood. He treated Night Sorrow and the others well before letting them leave. After leaving the new territory of the void beasts, Night Sorrow didn't immediately return to the Domain Master Manor in the Immortal Divine Realm. Instead, he went to the Domain Master Tianyi's territory to look for him. However, when he arrived, he was told that Tianyi wasn't there. He then told Tianyi's subordinate, the Divine King Beichun, about the Soundless Ocean. Only then did he return to the Domain Master Manor. There were only two materials left to activate the Heaven's Eye Stone and Parasol Tree Grass. Night Sorrow would recognize these two items if he saw them, but he didn't have any clues about them. When Night Sorrow returned, Wu Lingfei was still in seclusion. It was rare for him to have some time to rest, so he spent it with his wives in the Domain Master Manor. Under the influence of his wives, Jingyan received the most companionship, and rested for 3 months. Night Sorrow entered the Clear Sky Pagoda to cultivate the immortal divine art. His power of virtue had reached the level of a mid-level divine lord. If he cultivated in peace, his cultivation, body and soul wouldn't encounter any bottlenecks. He would be able to become a mid-level divine lord soon. However, Night Sorrow was special. He could challenge the Divine King as a low-level divine lord. The amount of resources he needed to become a mid-level divine lord was terrifying. After absorbing resources for 500 years in the Clear Sky Pagoda, he wasn't far from becoming a mid-level divine lord. In another 500 to 1,000 years he would become a mid-level divine lord. However, one day, Sikong Chiyu came to inform Night Sorrow that Wu Lingfei had come out of seclusion and had successfully become a low-level divine lord. Night Sorrow came out of seclusion immediately. Seeing Wu Lingfei in high spirits after her breakthrough, Night Sorrow was so happy that he almost cried. He still remembered Wu Ling concubine's disappointment when she was first rescued. At that time, her heart ached so much that she couldn't control herself. Concubine Fei, congratulations. Advanced to the Divine Lord realm. After pondering for a while, Night Sorrow organized his thoughts and finally said a few simple words. Wu Lingfei was overjoyed. Although I'm still very far away from the sovereign and the divine king, at least I've caught up a little. Haha. With Auntie Fei's talent, her future was limitless. You should adjust yourself for a few days. Once you have completely adapted to the divine sovereign realm, we will head to the Phoenix ancestral land. Isn't that the reason you came to the God realm? Yi Shang revealed a trace of a smile. He felt very gratified to be able to do something for Wu Lingfei. Yes. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Wu Lingfei smiled and nodded, not saying anything. But in her heart, she thought, the so-called Phoenix ancestral land is just a set of words. This was a small interlude, and Night Sorrow didn't notice it. Afterward, he asked Daoi and the others to prepare a banquet to celebrate Wu Lingfei's breakthrough. At this point, the people of the Night Moon dynasty had completely gained a foothold in the God realm. They only needed the Heaven and Earth concealment array to be invincible. Night Sorrow felt a lot less pressure because of the eternal supreme domain. Everyone drank to their heart's content. After the banquet, there was almost no one who wasn't drunk. After the banquet, Night Sorrow rested in the Domain Master's manor for 3 days. While Wu Lingfei was adjusting to the Divine Lord realm, he smashed the jar in his hand. He used the sovereign-grade materials on the jar to completely repair the heavenly Samsara halberd. After absorbing a large amount of sovereign-grade materials, the heavenly Samsara halberd was not only restored to its original state, but also upgraded to a half-step sovereign-grade divine artifact. Night Sorrow also used it to recreate the Forbidden Spear. The Forbidden Spear had the same name as before, but its power was vastly different. The destructive power of the Samsara attribute was on full display. After repairing the heavenly Samsara halberd and recreating the Forbidden Spear, Wu Lingfei still hadn't come out of seclusion. Night Sorrow once again rushed to the Soundless Sea by himself. When the hairless Taoist had detonated the lid of the jar, they had left in a hurry and hadn't been able to carefully observe the teleportation and summoning formations. He was prepared to do a thorough investigation before heading to the Phoenix ancestral grounds. When Night Sorrow arrived at the Soundless Sea's teleportation and summoning formations, he discovered that Divinity was observing the 2 formations with his hands clasped behind his back. He immediately stepped forward and greeted, Lord Divinity. Let's just call you Brother Tianai. I feel awkward hearing you call me Lord Divinity. Divinity had already emphasized to Night Sorrow how to address him, but Night Sorrow still felt that it was inappropriate to call him Brother Tianai. Now that Divinity brought it up again, Night Sorrow replied, All right. In the future, I'll call you Brother Tianai. Brother Tianai, do you have any way of dispelling these 2 formations? One of them can be used to teleport to the Dark Abyss, while the other can be used to summon creatures from the Dark Abyss. Divinity said, then continued in a domineering tone. Of course we can dispel them. However, we only need to destroy one of them to return to the Dark Abyss. As for the summoning formation that doesn't require a blood sacrifice, we'll just keep it. That's true. With Brother Tianai here, no matter how many creatures are summoned from the Dark Abyss, they won't be able to pose a threat to the God realm. Night Sorrow immediately agreed upon hearing Divinity words. Divinity chuckled. This is the immortal divine realm. Even if creatures of darkness are summoned, it should be you, an immortal sovereign, who should deal with them. Leave them for me? That's fine too. Night Sorrow was surprised at first, but he didn't think much of it. As long as they don't come, I'm confident in dealing with them. If a Dominator rank creature descends, it will be a realm war. Not only me, but other Dominators will also rush over. Don't worry. As for creatures of darkness below the hegemon level, they'll be of great help to you in increasing your strength. I won't let anyone else deal with them. I'll try my best to become a divine king as soon as possible. Hegemon Tianai patted Night Sorrow on the shoulder in a friendly manner. I'll do my best. I just hope that as many creatures of darkness are summoned as possible. Night Sorrow thought for a moment. He felt that Hegemon Tianai's reasoning made a lot of sense. Give me your divine artifact, Hegemon Tianai suddenly said. Which divine artifact? Is it Tianyan Bao? Night Sorrow asked. Chapter 2762. What? The Samsara halberd might have been tainted by something unclean? Upon hearing this, Night Sorrow was stunned. He hadn't noticed this at all. Without any hesitation, he took the Samsara halberd off his back and handed it to Hegemon Tianai. Hegemon Tianai took the halberd and hovered it in the air. After sizing it up, he scolded. Why aren't you showing yourself in front of me? You go your own way, and I'll go mine. Why are you meddling in other people's business? As soon as Hegemon Tianai spoke, an extremely gloomy, resentful voice rang out from the Samsara halberd. There really is something unclean here. Is it because I let the Samsara halberd absorb the jar fragment? Upon hearing this evil voice, Night Sorrow immediately went on guard. Meanwhile, Hegemon Tianai smiled and said, Night Sorrow is both my junior and my friend. How can I allow a weakling like you to harm him? Who are you calling weakling? You weren't even there when I became a Hegemon. The evil entity within the Samsara halberd was enraged by Hegemon Tianai's rebuke. It was a Hegemon from many reincarnations ago. By a stroke of luck, a sliver of its soul had been left behind. It had attached itself to the Hegemon artifact jar, and devoured the jar's damaged artifact spirit. After Night Sorrow had used the Samsara halberd to absorb the jar's energy, it had entered the Samsara halberd. It had been waiting for an opportunity to attack Night Sorrow's soul during their battle. As it saw it, even if its soul had been damaged, it would still be far stronger than a divine lord. The era that belongs to you has already passed. Why do you have to rely on your stubbornness to commit such atrocious acts? Hegemon Tianai's tone gradually turned icy. Although Night Sorrow's soul is no longer inferior to yours, I still don't want you to remain by his side as a hidden danger. Ha ha ha. How can a divine lord's soul be stronger than mine? Are all Hegemons this ignorant? The soul within the Samsara halberd said non-committally. However, it was still deeply afraid of Hegemon Tianai. Hurry up and leave or I'll kill you. Hegemon Tianai's tone gradually turned icy. If the discarnate soul didn't leave, he was prepared to attack. If you want to destroy me, this halberd will definitely be destroyed as well. The remnant soul's cold voice came from inside again. Now he was no longer an artifact spirit, but an evil spirit. I've already given you a chance, but you didn't grasp it. Hegemon Tianai let out a cold snort, then reached out with his hand and grabbed the halberd, pulling the soul out of it. As soon as it was pulled out, the remnant soul immediately screamed, but to no avail. Hegemon Tianai said coldly, "Be destroyed." Then he made a move and shattered it. After that, the remnant soul completely disappeared from the world. Thank you, Brother Tianai, for helping me find this remnant soul. After Dominator Tianai dealt with the Dominator remnant soul, Night Sorrow immediately thanked him. Actually, you can also deal with him by yourself, but there is a certain degree of danger, Hegemon Tianai said, then continued. Next I'll set up a formation here. That way, you'll be able to sense it as soon as any dark creatures are summoned. Next, he set up a formation in front of them. Once the formation was complete, he looked at Night Sorrow and said, "Pour your blood into the formation and activate it. That way, your soul will be able to sense what's going on here at any time." Alright, Brother Tianai. Night Sorrow agreed, then poured his blood into the formation. After just 3 drops, he could sense that he was connected to the formation in front of him. It was an extremely mysterious feeling. Alright, I'm going to return to the Hegemon's manor and continue my seclusion. Hegemon Tianai glanced at Night Sorrow and said, "If you have the time, go to Cloud Immortal Continent and take a look. The battle there is getting more and more intense. If possible, protect Tianyan's school." "I understand, Brother Tianai." Night Sorrow nodded. Protecting Tianyan's school was Xiao Tianxuan's wish, so he would do as he was told. Seeing that Hegemon Tianai was about to leave, he asked, "Brother Tianai, where in the God realm can I find Heaven's Eye stones and Wutong grass?" Heaven's Eye stones and Wutong grass? Upon hearing Night Sorrow's words, Hegemon Tianai muttered to himself, "I'm not sure about Heaven's Eye stones. However, Wutong grass should only grow around Wutong trees. As for Wutong trees, they usually appear in phoenix nests." Phoenix nests? That's perfect. Hegemon Tianai's words reminded Night Sorrow of the phoenix ancestral grounds. "What a coincidence," he said. "Thank you, Brother Tianai, for clearing my doubts. If there's nothing else, I'll be heading back." If there's nothing else, let's go." Hegemon Tianai waved his hand then vanished. Night Sorrow immediately returned to the Undying Divine Region's Domain Master Manor. As soon as he did, Xianjizi came forward to report, "Captain, today some of the Divine King's subordinates attacked our Undying Divine Region." "Oh, what kind of attack?" Night Sorrow asked, frowning. "It's just some minor friction for now. Logically speaking, it's normal, but the number of Divine King's factions that have a problem with the Undying Divine Region seems to have increased," Xianjizi explained. As it turned out, the number of Divine King's factions that had a bone to pick with the Undying Divine Region had increased to 4. Some even came from the All Heaven Dominion's territories. Our Undying Divine Region is second only to the 7 Dominion's territories. It's inevitable that we'll be envied. If you want to wear a crown, you must bear its weight. This sort of thing is inevitable. Night Sorrow analyzed the nature of the situation. Also, we do need to focus on nurturing our forces. We can't possibly fight every battle by ourselves. We'll do our best. However, the Undying Divine Region has only just been established. There are many things that aren't on the right track yet." Xianjizi then began to talk about the other difficulties the Undying Divine Region was currently facing. "The first step is always the hardest. Brother, you and the others should do your best. Use the resources as you wish. If there's anything you can't solve, come find me," Night Sorrow said. After a moment's thought he added, "I'll be accompanying Aunt Fei and Jing Yin to the Phoenix Ancestral Grounds today. During this time, the Undying Divine Region might encounter some trouble. If there's no other choice, we'll have to give up some territory. When I return, we'll take it back." "This all right." Xianjizi nodded. If there were more than 2 Divine King in Night Sorrow's absence, he and Jin Ye would have a hard time dealing with them. Chapter 2763. Understood, brother. Xianjizi nodded and handed Night Sorrow some information. This is the situation of the major factions attacking the Immortal Dominion. The 4 Divine King factions attacking the Immortal Dominion were the Dark Moon Dominion, All Heaven Dominion, Illustrious Dominion, and 7-Star Dominion. The Dark Moon Dominion and 7-Star Dominion bordered the Immortal Dominion, so friction was inevitable. The Divine King of the All Heaven Dominion and Illustrious Dominion were far away from each other, so it was a little too much. All Heaven Dominion and Illustrious Dominion. Very good. We'll settle this score slowly. Crossing over to fight had to be approved by the Dominion. Night Sorrow had a lot of opinions about the All Heaven Dominion and Illustrious Dominion. However, the enemy's attack was still in the probing stage, so it wasn't urgent. The most important thing now was to find the Heaven's Eye Stone and Parasol Tree Grass, and activate the Heaven and Earth Concealment Array. Only after ensuring Night Moon's safety could Night Sorrow let go and do some things. After some thought, Night Sorrow handed Su Xiaoye and Ma Yingyuan's jade talismans to Xianjizi. These are the jade talismans of the 2 Divine Kings. If the Immortal Dominion is in danger while I'm accompanying Aunt Fei to the Phoenix Nest, summon them immediately. Including Jin Ye. We have at least 3 Divine Kings. We should be able to turn the tide. Good. In addition to Senior Tianqing, we have at least 4 God Kings present at this crucial moment. Xianjizi relaxed a lot after receiving the jade talismans. The Immortal Dominion had just been established, so it didn't have many troops under its command. They could only rely on these top forces. Senior Tianqing is in seclusion. Don't look for her unless it's absolutely necessary. Night Sorrow said one last thing to Xianjizi before heading to Wu Lingfei's seclusion. Now that the immortal dominion was being targeted, time was of the essence. They had to hurry to the Phoenix ancestral grounds. When he found Wu Lingfei, she was still adjusting to the Divine Lord realm. Jingyun was giving her pointers. After all, she was from an ancient family and had been a Divine Lord for some time. Husband, you're back? Aunt Fei's talent is very good. In another 2 or 3 years, she should be able to completely stabilize her cultivation. Upon seeing Night Sorrow's arrival, Jingyun immediately spoke. I'm afraid we don't have the time. Currently, our immortal domain is being targeted. This is just a probing attack, but as time passes, I'm afraid the domain chief's mansion will be threatened. Therefore, we have to speed up our journey to the Phoenix ancestral land. Night Sorrow looked at Jingyun and Wu Lingfei. Then let's go quickly. If we can really obtain the relevant resources, our strength will definitely soar. At that time, it will be a good thing for the immortal dominion. Wu Lingfei immediately stood up and said when she heard Night Sorrow's words, Aunt Fei, while I'm on my way, you can continue to stabilize your cultivation with Jingyun in the Clear Sky Pagoda. However, time should be tight. Night Sorrow said. He immediately summoned the 2 women into the Clear Sky Pagoda and hurried to inform his other wives. Then he left the domain chief's manor and headed to the Phoenix ancestral land left behind by the Supreme Phoenix. The Phoenix ancestral land was equivalent to a small world hidden in the void. Ordinary people couldn't enter even if they discovered it because they didn't have any tokens. Night Sorrow had met the Supreme Phoenix and had some of his aura on him. Naturally, he could enter. When he arrived at the entrance of the Phoenix ancestral land, Night Sorrow was immediately sucked into a teleportation array. Aunt Fei, Jingyun, come out. We're here. After being sent to the Phoenix ancestral land by the teleportation array, Night Sorrow immediately called the 2 women out of the Clear Sky Pagoda. In front of them was a small world that was scorching hot. There were countless sycamore trees. These sycamore trees didn't look too tall, but the forest was dense and filled with immortal chi. We should be at the edge. Can you feel anything? Night Sorrow opened the eye of the sea serpent and observed for a while. However, he didn't see anything in the sycamore forest, so he asked. Jingyun and Wu Lingfei had the phoenix bloodline flowing in their bodies. If there was an opportunity in the small world, they should be able to feel it. I don't feel anything special. After Night Sorrow opened his mouth to ask, Wu Lingfei shook her head and said. Jingyun similarly didn't feel anything and said, Me too. Linger, you come out and sense it a bit. See if you can find any aura. The 2 girls did not feel anything special. Night Sorrow immediately summoned Cao Linger out of the Clear Sky Pagoda. This was the only Horn clan member that he carried on him. Alright, big brother Night Sorrow. Cao Linger spent more time with Night Sorrow recently. Furthermore, her strength rose very quickly, and her mood was pretty good. After coming out of the Clear Sky Pagoda, she used the 2 horns on her head to sense the small world. After roughly an hour, Cao Linger's brows were tightly locked as she said, This place seems to be a little strange. How strange? Night Sorrow asked in puzzlement. The natural treasures here seem to have all become spirits. Cao Linger said a sentence and continued describing, Maybe it's because the small world has existed for too long. Some things with spirits here have all already become spirits, and are no longer those kind of natural treasures of inanimate objects. If the bloodline or tail feathers left behind by sovereign ancestral phoenix became spirits, would it be too cruel for us to go and kill and plunder again? When Jingyun heard Cao Linger's words, she immediately revealed a difficult look. Wu Lingfei mused for a while and said, If we need to strangle other lives to improve ourselves, I'd rather not have this kind of lucky chance. What you all said makes sense, but I feel that we still need to observe a little more. Night Sorrow opened his mouth and said a sentence, then continued, Because sovereign ancestral phoenix as an existence surpassing sovereigns, there's definitely a reason for letting us come. At this time, Cao Linger suddenly screamed and said, Ah, they're here. At the same time, she rubbed her head nonstop. Clearly, her divine soul suffered an impact. Lingfei quickly consumed these 2 medicinal pills. Night Sorrow hurriedly took out 2 medicinal pills and handed them to Cao Linger for her to consume. At this time, countless colorful phoenix-like birds flew over from the horizon. Among them was a fire phoenix. When it flew close to Night Sorrow, Wu Lingfei and Jing Yun, it signaled for them to stop. Floating in the air, it said, "Are you the fated ones that Lord spoke of? We've been waiting for you for countless reincarnations." Sovereign Ancestral Phoenix had become a sovereign and left the god realm. Countless reincarnations had passed since then, and they had indeed waited for a long time. What instructions did Lord Sovereign Ancestral Phoenix leave behind? Yishan asked as he raised his head to size up the extremely dazzling fire phoenix in the air. Chapter 2764. Milord left behind an opportunity, but you need to pass the test to obtain it. At this point, the Inferno Phoenix released her divine soul and scanned the 3 of them carefully. Then she said disappointedly, "You are too weak. I suggest that the 3 of you break through to the Divine King before attempting the test. Otherwise, your lives will be in danger." Lord Phoenix Ancestor said that once I break through to the Divine Lord realm, I can bring people to seek out this opportunity. Night Sorrow had no intention of retreating. He couldn't wait until he reached the Divine King realm. You might be blindly confident in your own strength. The flame phoenix floating in the sky gently flapped its wings, and boundless flames immediately attacked the 3 of them. At the same time, the flame phoenix said, "This level of flame attack is only 1% of the final test strength. You had best back off. This phoenix doesn't want to personally kill the fated person that Milord has chosen. This level of attack can't hurt us." The flames released by the flame phoenix were truly scorching hot, capable of incinerating all things. However, Night Sorrow, Jing Yun, and Wu Lingfei were all able to withstand it. This was especially true for Jing Yun and Wu Lingfei, who had the phoenix bloodline and didn't fear this heat. You're Milord's descendants. However, you shouldn't be able to pass the final test. The flame phoenix saw that her attack didn't have much effect and immediately confirmed that Jing Yun and Wu Lingfei's phoenix bloodline wasn't weak. But after thinking about the test left behind by the phoenix ancestor, she shook her head. "We choose to begin the challenge immediately." After being burned by the flames, Wu Lingfei immediately felt a sense of intimacy that she had never felt before, and her fighting spirit soared. Although Jing Yun and Wu Lingfei had only met a few times, they were both descendants of the phoenix ancestor, so she felt the same way. She also said, "Please allow us to accept the test. Since you've made up your mind, there's no harm in starting it. However, you'll be responsible for your own life and death." The flame phoenix in the sky saw that the 2 women were determined and had no intention of backing down, so she reminded them. She looked at Night Sorrow and said, "Do you want to start the challenge as well?" "Me? Aren't I here to help? You can also start the challenge yourself?" Yishan asked doubtfully when he heard Horfeng's question. "Although you don't have the phoenix bloodline in your body, you have the aura of my lord, so you can naturally start the challenge. If you succeed, your harvest won't be less than theirs," the fire phoenix explained. At the same time he looked at Cao Linger, shook his head and said, "As for her, she is not qualified to challenge." "What does that have to do with me?" Cao Linger was speechless. She had no intention of participating in the challenge at all. If it wasn't for Night Sorrow blocking the flames, she wouldn't have been able to withstand it. Since that's the case, I choose to start the challenge as well. Night Sorrow did not hesitate and immediately started the challenge. At the same time, he stored Cao Linger into the vast heaven pagoda. But you will be sent to 3 different small worlds. What you need to do is to survive and find a way to pass the test. The fire phoenix asked, "Are you ready?" "Ready," Night Sorrow, Wu Lingfei, and Jing Yun said at the same time. The moment the other party was about to open the small worlds, Night Sorrow transmitted his voice to Jing Yun. "Take care of yourself. If the test is difficult to pass, then cultivate patiently until you pass the test. Time in the divine realm is the most worthless thing. Husband, you have to take care of yourself too." Jing Yun, who received the transmission, looked at Night Sorrow and smiled at him. Then, she released her battle intent. In the Night Moon Dynasty, She had been controlling her sharpness. At this moment, she finally erupted. Good. I will take care of myself. Yishang also glanced at Jing Yun. Although he didn't know what the ancestral phoenix sovereign's test and reward were, he had a strange feeling in his heart. He was slightly worried. However, he could not stop Jing Yun from searching for opportunities. At this time, Wu Lingfei looked at Night Sorrow and saw that his expression was not good. She immediately comforted him. Don't worry. Jing Yun's bloodline is several times stronger than Aunt Fei's. She will be fine. I believe that will be the case. Night Sorrow nodded and looked at Wu Lingfei. Aunt Fei, if you encounter an invincible creature inside, remember to use the king-grade divine talismans I gave you. Those things can save your life at a critical moment. Don't worry. Although Aunt Fei is a newcomer in the divine realm, I have experienced countless battles in the lower realm, Wu Lingfei said and hugged Night Sorrow. Then she looked at Huafeng and said, Please let me enter the challenge as well. Good. Get ready. Huafeng replied and sent Wu Lingfei into the small worlds. I originally thought that this would be a dangerous place similar to the cave abode, where I could find many treasures. After Jing Yun and Wu Lingfei were sent away, Yishang sighed emotionally. Master is not dead, and he is living well in the eternal supreme world. How could his cave abode and inheritance have fallen into such a state? Huafeng replied disdainfully when she heard Night Sorrow's words. Night Sorrow felt that her words made sense. However, he did not immediately start the challenge. Instead, he asked, May I ask if I can find the parasol tree grass here? Parasol tree grass? Why are you asking about it? Huafeng thought for a moment and looked at a demon spirit behind her. Your original form is the parasol tree grass, right? Yes, Lord Huafeng. The parasol tree grass turned into a demon spirit and replied, May I ask if there is any parasol tree grass that has not turned into a demon spirit? I need some to set up a formation. Night Sorrow looked at the parasol tree grass and asked. Naturally, he could not use the parasol tree grass to activate the heaven and earth concealment formation. There is one parasol tree grass here, and that is me. The parasol tree grass looked at Night Sorrow and shook its head. Obviously, it was a little timid. Night Sorrow was at a loss when he saw its timid look. He continued to ask, Is there any way for me to get some parasol tree grass? Isn't it said that parasol tree grass is the companion of the parasol tree? There should be a lot of it. Huafeng replied when she heard Night Sorrow's words. The parasol tree is in Master's habitat, and you can only go there after passing the test. If you want to get the parasol tree grass, think of a way to pass the test. If you can do it, the other two can also help you pick the parasol tree grass. Alright. Then help me activate the test left behind by Ancestor Phoenix. Obviously, he could not bear to kill the parasol tree grass, so he asked Huafeng to activate the test. Upon hearing Yishang's words, the flame phoenix in the sky immediately sent him to a small world. It's so hot. Chapter 2765. The terrifying heat felt like it was going to incinerate him. Night Sorrow looked up and realized that the small world in front of him was completely made up of fiery red. The ground was filled with liquid lava, with only a small amount of rocks. There was no way to walk. He could only advance by flying. How do I pass this test? Night Sorrow, who was leaning against the small world's barrier, opened the sea serpent's eye and observed for a while. He then used his divine sense to investigate. He didn't find any feasible route. Therefore, he flew straight ahead aimlessly. After flying in the air for a while, Night Sorrow suddenly saw a group of creatures appear in the magma on the surface. These were some dark brown lava earth dragons at the Divine Lord level. There were about 10 of them. Their aura wasn't particularly strong, but Night Sorrow immediately felt a sense of danger when they locked onto him. Whoa. Intrude or die. As for these earth dragons, they had clearly gained intelligence and were aware that Yi Chang was the challenger. When they saw him, they immediately launched a ferocious attack. Just as these dark brown lava earth dragons attacked, a golden-red king-tier earth dragon drilled out from the lava. I just encountered some king-tier creatures. No wonder the Fire Phoenix said that I need to be at the Divine King's level to start the challenge. While using the Samsara halberd to resist the flames, Night Sorrow focused on the King Tier Earth Dragon. After this King Tier Earth Dragon appeared, it didn't howl or do anything. However, being stared at, Night Sorrow felt like his divine sense was being roasted. That strange burning sensation made him feel very uncomfortable. 33 Heaven's Secret Combat Technique. At this moment, Night Sorrow activated the Green Phoenix armor and the 33 Heaven's Secret Combat Technique to remind himself of his strength. Then he used the Dragon Roaming Heaven Steps and used the Samsara halberd to attack some of the King Tier Earth Dragons below. The Samsara Heavenly Halberd was already a half-step Dominator grade divine weapon, and Night Sorrow's strength wasn't inferior to an ordinary Divine King's. Under his attacks, the Earth Dragons in the lava started to die one by one. The King-level Earth Dragon didn't react much when the God Monarch-level Earth Dragons were killed one after another. However, the King-level Earth Dragon kept roasting Yishang's divine soul, making Yishang feel as if he was being burned. In the beginning, this kind of roasting didn't cause any actual damage, but over time, it became very terrifying. Night Sorrow even felt that he was like a frog being boiled in warm water. After fighting for so long, he felt as if his spirit was about to split apart. He felt as if his divine soul was about to explode. Fortunately, I have 2 divine souls. Otherwise, with the state of my divine soul, I wouldn't be able to fight normally. One of the deity seas was burning unbearably. Night Sorrow immediately used the soul power of the other deity, sea, to lock onto the King-class Earth Dragon below. However, at this moment, more than a dozen roars came from the lava. The Divine Monarch-level Earth Dragons that Night Sorrow had slain were actually reborn one by one in the lava swamp. Isn't it said that a phoenix can rise from the ashes? How come even Earth Dragons can rise from the ashes now? Looking at the Earth Dragons before him, Night Sorrow couldn't help but feel a wave of emotions. He wondered if the secret of rebirth was hidden in this small world. However, time was of the essence. He could feel that the second deity, sea, was being roasted again. He immediately attacked the evil King-class Earth Dragon furiously. Awoo! At this moment, the King-class Earth Dragon that hadn't moved until now finally revealed its entire body. It was 1,000 times larger than Night Sorrow's body, and dozens of times larger than the surrounding Divine Lord-level Earth Dragons. It looked like a monster that could blot out the sky and the sun. It gave off an indomitable feeling. If a King-class Earth Dragon can rise from the ashes, this King-class Earth Dragon should be able to do the same. I wonder how I can deal with it. Night Sorrow, who was floating in the void, was a very small existence compared to the King-class Earth Dragon. Sky-burning dragon flames. Just as Night Sorrow was thinking about how to deal with the King-class Earth Dragon, the huge Earth Dragon attacked first. It spat out a column of fire that was so hot that it changed the color of the void. Seeing the column of fire, the newly reborn Earth Dragons were so scared that they dove into the lava swamp. Night Sorrow immediately understood that this flame was definitely not simple. Fiery demon subduing flames. Facing the column of fire, Night Sorrow immediately shot out a flame that contained the aura of the ancestral phoenix. It collided with the flame spat out by the King-class Earth Dragon. The flame that Night Sorrow shot out with the Samsara halberd was in the form of clouds of fire. It was different from the column of fire spat out by the King-class Earth Dragon, but it wasn't much weaker. After being shot out, the flames that filled the sky quickly gathered together and formed a wall of fire in front of Night Sorrow, blocking the column of fire. The 2 different flames burned together and instantly created a terrifyingly high temperature. The surrounding void was instantly incinerated, burning one huge black hole after another. It looked extremely terrifying. However, the column of fire attack by the King-class Earth Dragon was successfully neutralized by Night Sorrow. The aura of the ancestral phoenix in the Samsara halberd played a crucial role. It had a restraining effect on the King-class Earth Dragon. You have some skills, but you still have to die. You're still a little weak when it comes to fighting with this king's flame power. Seeing that the attack didn't pose any threat to Night Sorrow, the Earth Dragon King immediately roared and spat out a round ball of fire into the air. It roared, Have a taste of this king's natal fire origin bead. The huge natal fire origin bead looked like a small sun. It was shot out directly at Night Sorrow. The closer it was to Night Sorrow, the hotter it became. It's really uncomfortable to be roasted like this. Passively taking a beating isn't a solution. I have to go all out. Unknowingly, Yishang felt his second spirit sea burn unbearably again. While he was on guard, forming the Divine Essence Dragon Locking Formation, Xiaochen locked the natal fire origin bead within. Then he took out the Heavenly Cloud Bow and shot out 3 Heavenly Cloud Arrows. In the previous battle, all 9 Heavenly Cloud Arrows had been destroyed. Thus, he had created 20 new ones. 9 of them had been strengthened with the Sovereign Stone. The 3 that he shot out weren't strengthened. Sovereign Artifact? Good, very good. With the Sovereign Artifact, this king won't be bound to this small world anymore. The king-class Earth Dragon roared excitedly when it saw Night Sorrow take out the Tianyun Bow. You want to steal the Sovereign Artifact and escape from this small world? You're dreaming. As Night Sorrow spoke, the 3 Heavenly Cloud Arrows that hit the natal fire origin bead immediately exploded, causing the natal fire origin bead to be severely damaged. He had intentionally used this tactic of harming the enemy while harming himself. These Heavenly Cloud Arrows hadn't been strengthened by the Sovereign Stone, so they weren't that valuable. Chapter 2766. Do you think that this king's natal fire essence orb is so easily damaged? Seeing that Night Sorrow had used the 3 Heaven Cloud Arrows to damage his natal fire essence orb, the King-tier Earth Dragon laughed in a deep voice. It immediately spat out 3 flames on the damaged natal fire essence orb. After being burned by the flames, the natal fire essence orb immediately recovered to its original state. At this moment, Night Sorrow's godly soul was being roasted in the flames and felt even more uncomfortable. At this moment, Night Sorrow, who felt that this was not the way to go, suddenly had an idea. He started to make use of his opponent's godly soul attack to strengthen his own godly soul. After the immortal divine art was activated, although his opponent's godly soul attack was still there, at the same time, the strength of his godly soul started to be strengthened. The strength of his godly soul started to catch up with the power of merit, slowly increasing towards the level of a mid-level divine lord. You know how powerful I am? Go to hell. The Dominator divine weapon is this king's. The King-tier Earth Dragon obviously did not expect that Night Sorrow would choose to strengthen one of his deity Cs under such circumstances. Then he would use the other deity C to fight. It thought that the natal fire essence orb had completely suppressed Night Sorrow and spat out 3 more flames. This time, the 3 flames were red, orange and gold respectively. The degree of heat was extremely shocking. After absorbing the 3 flames, the natal fire essence orb's attacks immediately became more ferocious. As it spun in the air, it continuously shot out beams of fire at Yishan. If not for the fact that Night Sorrow's body was strong enough, he would have been incinerated by the flames. Tianyun Bao, you want to absorb these flames? Just as Night Sorrow was trying his best to resist the flames, he suddenly felt that Tianyun Bao seemed to be activated on its own. It seemed to want to devour the flames to strengthen itself. However, its will was a little vague. Night Sorrow didn't quite understand it. He could only feel Tianyun Bao's trembling. He couldn't completely decipher its thoughts and directly placed it in the void. Placed in the air, Tianyun Bao absorbed all the flames shot out by the natal fire essence bead. After absorbing to a certain extent, Tianyun Bao suddenly let out a bow sound. After the bow vibrated for a moment, a small flame suddenly appeared on the bow. Although these flames looked very gentle, they increased Tianyun Bao's power by a lot. So you didn't know that you can absorb blood and fire. Seeing the changes in Tianyun Bao, Night Sorrow suddenly understood that absorbing blood was not the only way for Tianyun Bao to become stronger. After pondering for a moment, Night Sorrow took out a strengthened Heaven Cloud Arrow. He plucked Tianyun Bao from the void and shot it directly at the Emperor rank Earth Dragon. Tianyun Bao's Heaven Cloud Arrow, which had been activated by the pure flames, immediately burned with scorching flames. Using fire techniques against this King Earth Dragon? Facing Tianyun Bao's Heaven Cloud Arrow, The Emperor rank Earth Dragon snorted contemptuously. It swept its huge tail over, wanting to shatter the Heaven Cloud Arrow. However, what it didn't expect was that this Heaven Cloud Arrow not only contained a trace of Dominator rank power, but the flames on it were also very shocking. It directly pierced through its tail, and spun behind it before shooting towards its head. King's Inferno. To the Emperor rank Earth Dragon, the Heaven Cloud Arrow looked like an embroidery needle. However, the terrifying power it contained made it not dare to underestimate it. It immediately spat out its most powerful origin flames. What a terrifying flame! When the King's Inferno was spat out, Night Sorrow could feel the sky change color. Even with the strength of his body, he wouldn't be able to last long if he was burned by this flame. He who was still using the flames from his natal fire origin orb to strengthen his divine soul, didn't dare to use the King's Inferno to strengthen his divine soul. At the same time, after this flame was spat out, it directly burned and destroyed the strengthened Heaven Cloud Arrow. This was the first time the Heaven Cloud Arrow had been so easily destroyed by the Divine King. Night Sorrow was very shocked. However, at this time, Tianyunbao once again flew out of Night Sorrow's hands with a boom. It absorbed all the King's Inferno in the void. This King's origin flames. Spit out this King. Seeing its origin flames being absorbed by Tianyunbao, the Emperor rank Earth Dragon immediately roared. The origin flames in its body were formed gradually after accumulating for tens of thousands of reincarnations. It was very precious to it. Now that it was all absorbed by Tianyunbao, how could it not feel uncomfortable? So this is the origin flames, no wonder it's so powerful. Tianyunbao absorbed all the King's Inferno of the Earth Dragon, and immediately flew back to Night Sorrow's hands. Night Sorrow, who was lamenting, immediately felt the flame released by his natal fire origin orb drop by a lot. His strengthened divine soul was no longer under any pressure when facing this kind of flame attack. At this time, Night Sorrow didn't immediately use Tianyunbao to attack the Emperor rank Earth Dragon. Instead, he used the flames from his natal fire origin orb and the immortal mantra to strengthen his body, gradually increasing his body's strength. However, there was still a certain distance to the level of a middle divine lord. Bastard! You actually used this king's method to strengthen yourself in battle. The Emperor rank Earth Dragon gnashed its teeth in hatred when it saw Night Sorrow's method. But after thinking for a moment, it didn't explode. Instead it shouted, "Challenger! Return this king's origin flames, and this king will consider you a pass. I will also tell you how to open the next checkpoint. Your suggestion is very good, but things are not under my control. Let's continue the battle. Take my arrow." The Emperor rank Earth Dragon's words moved Night Sorrow, but he wasn't a 3-year-old child. How could he return the opponent's trump card and continue to withstand the opponent's attacks? After replying, he took out 5 heavenly cloud arrows. He shot the 5 elements arrow burning with flames towards the huge Emperor rank Earth Dragon. The 5 elements arrow with the Emperor rank Earth Dragon's origin flames was extremely terrifying. After shooting it, it immediately caused the Emperor rank Earth Dragon's face to change color. It directly fled back into the lava swamp. Looks like without the origin flames, you have no strength to fight at all. You don't even want your natal fire origin orb anymore. The 5 elements arrow chased into the lava swamp. Night Sorrow began to use the clear sky pagoda to collect the natal fire origin orb in front of him. The flames that this natal fire origin orb spewed out could be used to cultivate the strength of the body, and could also be used to strengthen the divine soul. The effect was extremely great. To the current him, it was absolutely a good thing. At the beginning, although Night Sorrow tried his best to absorb it, he couldn't completely absorb it into the clear sky pagoda, because the Emperor rank Earth Dragons will still remained in the natal fire origin orb. Chapter 2767. After about 10 breaths of time, the 5 elements arrow flew out of the lava swamp. The Earth Dragon's roar completely disappeared, and the Earth Dragon's will in the natal fire origin pearl also disappeared. Obviously, the Earth Dragon had been killed by the 5 elements arrow. Night Sorrow used this time to keep the natal fire origin pearl in the clear sky pagoda, and made it recognize him as its master. Although the intensity of the flames on the life fire origin bead that was stored in the clear sky pagoda was not as strong as the earth dragon's origin flames, it was completely destructive to a god lord. It could even threaten a god king. It was very useful. Knight Sorrow used his divine soul to sense it, and nodded in satisfaction. At this time he muttered, "Even a Sir God level earth dragon can be revived. It should be the same for a king tier earth dragon. When you revive, let's fight again." While waiting for the king tier earth dragon to revive, Knight Sorrow used the natal fire origin pearl to strengthen the first divine sea and his body. Just as the first divine sea's divine soul reached the level of a middle level Sir God. In the lava swamp, there was a loud dragon roar. This dragon roar was filled with endless anger. It immediately shook the lava in the swamp and sent it flying. "You caused me to lose my life. Challenger, you will die here. Your Dominator divine weapon will become this king's." After the king tier earth dragon was revived, its body was 100 times smaller. It looked about the same size as a Sir God level earth dragon. However, its divine king aura had a significant change. It had risen from a low-level divine king to a middle-level divine king. Its strength had a significant increase. If Tianyun Bao can kill you once, he can kill you a second time. Let me give you a piece of advice. If you don't want to be completely killed, choose to submit and let me pass. Knight Sorrow looked at the revived king tier earth dragon. Although its aura had increased, it was not as dangerous as before. "You want to pass? Unless you kill this king, go to hell." The king-class earth dragon clearly had a violent temper. Without wasting any time, it leaped into the air and attacked Knight Sorrow. Before its rebirth, it had always used flames to attack. Who would have thought that its first attack would be a close-range attack? Good timing. Knight Sorrow was not used to the earth dragon's constant fire attacks. Knight Sorrow wielded the heavenly Samsara halberd and unleashed the forbidden spear that he had just comprehended. The heavenly Samsara halberd, which was already a half-step sovereign weapon, unleashed a new forbidden spear attack. The spear left Knight Sorrow's body and pierced through the void toward the Earth Dragon King. The king-class Earth Dragon might have the cultivation of a middle-level divine king, but it was still pierced through and sent flying. Roar! The king-class Earth Dragon King had never imagined that Knight Sorrow would be able to pierce through it and send it flying without using a sovereign weapon. It was so angry that it immediately roared. As the king-class Earth Dragon roared, all the Divine Lord-level Earth Dragons in the lava swamp flew out of the swamp and turned into fire energy that entered its body. At the same time, a fire crystal core also rose from the bottom of the lava swamp. After absorbing all the energy in this fire crystal core, the king-class Earth Dragon's cultivation advanced to that of a high-level divine king. Its strength had increased qualitatively. It actually advanced from a low-level divine king to a middle-level divine king so quickly, and then to a high-level divine king. Why does it feel so illusory? While Knight Sorrow sighed, he also knew that the rules of this small world were set by the ancestor Phoenix Sovereign. He had to face this divine king Earth Dragon that had advanced to a high-level divine king. A few days ago, he had been able to rely on Tianyun Bao to defeat high-level divine king opponents, because the two dark divine kings had come to the divine world from the dark abyss and lost most of their strength. On the surface, they appeared to be high-level divine kings, but in reality, they only had the strength of a middle-level divine king. But now, the king-class Earth Dragon had truly advanced to a high-level divine king. A high-level divine king against a low-level divine lord. Even with the help of a sovereign weapon, death is certain. After advancing to a high-level divine king, the king-class Earth Dragon's aura had become much more terrifying. He coldly threatened Knight Sorrow and blasted out a strike. This time, Knight Sorrow used the Samsara halberd to unleash the same forbidden spear strike, but he was unable to block it at all. At the crucial moment, Tianyun Bao released a defensive energy that prevented Knight Sorrow from being seriously injured. The gap between a low-level divine lord and a true high-level divine king was too great. Even though Knight Sorrow was astonishingly talented and had a deep foundation, it was still very difficult for him to fight. Heavenly Cloud 5 Elemental Arrow. After being sent flying, Knight Sorrow stabilized himself in the void and immediately shot the Heavenly Cloud 5 Elemental Arrow at the king-class Earth Dragon. However, The 5 elements arrow that had once killed an earth dragon at the level of a lower divine king was directly neutralized after it was shot out this time. Even my strongest attack can't harm it. It seems like there's no point in continuing this battle. The king-class earth dragon's strength had advanced by leaps and bounds. Knight Sorrow made a quick assessment and determined that he was currently no match for it. He used the profound heaven-roaming dragon art and began to flee. However, the king-class earth dragon, which had advanced to a high-level divine king, was also terrifyingly fast. Even after using the profound heaven-roaming dragon art, Knight Sorrow was still unable to shake off the distance between them. What should I do? As the king-class earth dragon continued to close in on him, Knight Sorrow kept thinking of a solution. If he kept fleeing in the void, he would definitely be caught. After pondering for a while, Knight Sorrow dived directly into the lava on the ground. You can't even escape in the void. If you enter the lava controlled by this king, you'll die even faster. Seeing Knight Sorrow fleeing into the lava, the king-class earth dragon immediately let out a raging roar. However, its speed did not decrease at all, and it continued to chase after him. It seems like I have to take a risk. Knight Sorrow, who was fleeing, immediately used his divine soul to control Tianyun Bao, and made Tianyun Bao fly out of the lava swamp. As for himself, he dived into the lava swamp. When the king-class earth dragon saw Knight Sorrow and Tianyun Bao fleeing in different directions, it hesitated for a while and immediately chased after the Dominator divine weapon Tianyun Bao. In its opinion, Knight Sorrow was no more than an ant to it, and was no longer a threat. However, the Dominator divine weapon Tianyun Bao was something that could change its fate. It was obvious that it would make such a choice. When the king-class earth dragon chased after Tianyun Bao, Knight Sorrow immediately entered the clear sky pagoda and used all kinds of resources to cultivate. Currently, he was at a complete disadvantage when facing the king-class earth dragon. The main reason was that his cultivation level was too low. Currently, his power of merit, first godly soul, and the toughness of his body had basically reached the level of a middle-level divine lord. He was prepared to quickly raise his cultivation level to that level. As long as he broke through to the level of a middle-level divine lord, with the heavenly Samsara halberd and Tianyun Bao as his support, he could once again attempt to challenge the king-class earth dragon. Brother Knight Sorrow, you have to do your best. Before Knight Sorrow began to cultivate, Cao Linger said with tears in her eyes. She was very worried about Knight Sorrow's safety and her own fate. Knight Sorrow was suppressed to the point that he even had to throw out Tianyun Bao. This made her very afraid. Chapter 2768. Linger believes that Big Brother Knight Sorrow can bring Linger through this crisis. Cao Linger said timidly, and found a spot to cultivate in the vast heaven pagoda. It was just that she was born extremely sensitive, and could not calm her heart at all. After Cao Linger left, Knight Sorrow calmed his mind in an instant, and entered a cultivation state. The current him forgot about Jing Yun and Wu Ling Fei, forgot about his family, even forgot about Tianyun Bao, and the king-rank earth dragon. Wholeheartedly immersing himself into cultivation. With the help of the immortal divine art, driven by the power of virtue, spending 400 years, Knight Sorrow finally raised his cultivation to middle-level divine lord level. After easily transcending the tribulation, he thoroughly became a divine lord in name and in reality. Inside the vast heaven pagoda, 400 years passed. In the outside world, 4 years should have passed. I wonder how Tianyun Bao is doing. Standing in the small world anew, Knight Sorrow felt the powerful strength brought about by middle-level divine lord realm. Immediately, a strong confidence in defeating the king-rank earth dragon rose. But 4 years had already passed. Tianyun Bao had already left Knight Sorrow's perception range long ago. Searching for a while in the scorching small world, he still did not find any clues. The king-rank earth dragon was also completely not in the lava swamp. Tianyun Bao himself did not have an artifact spirit. Knight Sorrow was somewhat worried. Linger, come out and help Big Brother Knight Sorrow to sense. See if you can find Tianyun Bao's aura. Seriously, without any way, he summoned Cao Linger out from the vast heaven pagoda. Cao Linger appeared in the scorching small world, and immediately felt very uncomfortable. That kind of heat, she could not quite withstand it. At this time, Night Sorrow released his divine domain, enveloping her inside. Thank you, Big Brother Night Sorrow. Only then did Cowlinger feel much more comfortable use her dual horns to sense. Sensing for a while, she furrowed her brows and said, "Directly east. Can't sense exactly how far away." "Good. Let's head east." Cowlinger sensed Tianyin Bao's aura. Night Sorrow immediately relaxed and rushed towards the east. After traveling at full speed towards the east for 7 days and 7 nights, Night Sorrow suddenly heard the sound of fierce fighting ahead. He immediately drew a concealment array around himself and began to observe. It was a battle between a King-tier Earth Dragon and a Divine King Realm Fire Dragon Sparrow. Tianyin Bao, on the other hand, floated in the void, radiating brilliance. It was obvious that the two of them were fighting over Tianyin Bao. After fighting for a while, the Fire Dragon Sparrow and the Earth Dragon King stopped. After recovering for a while, the Earth Dragon said, "You and I have been fighting for 4 years, and we are still evenly matched. It's time to think of a solution today. Find a way?" What could he do? Whoever obtains the sovereign artifact will be able to pass the trial set by the Lord, leave this small world, and obtain the fortuitous opportunity left by the Lord. The Fire Dragon Sparrow laughed disdainfully. "Are you going to let me have the sovereign artifact? Naturally, it's impossible for me to give it to you, but we can use it together to leave this small world." The Earth Dragon King replied in a deep voice. The two of them were emitting intense flames. If the High God Cowlinger was outside, she wouldn't be able to withstand the flames. Pass the trial? What trial is it? Night Sorrow, who was hiding in the concealment array, was immediately curious after hearing the Fire Dragon Sparrow's words. After all, he had come to this small world to pass the trial. Now, it seemed that the trial was the same for him and the other King-tier life forms. Whoever passed the trial first would obtain the fortuitous opportunity left behind by the Ancestor Phoenix. I wonder how Jing Yin and Aunt Fei are doing now. If the trial they received was the same as mine, then it would be too difficult for them to pass. Even if they could protect themselves, who knows how many years it would take for them to pass the trial. Thinking about Jing Yin and Wu Lingfei, Night Sorrow began to worry. Although the two of them had good bloodline talents, they didn't have the strength to defeat the Divine King. If the trial was the same, it would be very difficult for them. Haha. Use it together? Then who will use Tianyin Bao at the crucial moment? The Fire Dragon Sparrow didn't believe the Earth Dragon King at all. For years ago, when the Heavenly Cloud Bao reached this place, it completely lost control and floated quietly in the void. The Fire Dragon Sparrow, who happened to be passing by, immediately started fighting with the Earth Dragon King. The two fought for 4 years, using all their means, but still unable to determine a victor. If I call back Tianyin Bao now, I might be pursued by the two of them. I should be able to defeat the Earth Dragon King, or the Fire Dragon Sparrow with my current strength. But if the two of them work together, it will be very difficult to deal with. Night Sorrow put away his worries, hid his aura, and patiently observed the battle between the Earth Dragon King and the Fire Dragon Sparrow. Right now he could use his godly soul to summon Tianyin Bao, but that would make him a target for everyone. Therefore he didn't choose to do anything. Instead, he patiently observed and waited for the right opportunity. At this time, the Earth Dragon King continued to talk to the Fire Dragon Sparrow. The two of us are the weakest kings in this small world. If we continue to hesitate and stay here, we will encounter other experts. You should know what the consequences will be. This is the intersection of our territories. The other 5 kings have no reason to be here. The Fire Dragon Sparrow was still unmoved by the Earth Dragon King's words. This made the Earth Dragon King very unhappy. After a moment of silence, he continued, "That's when they don't know about the Dominator Divine Artifact. Now, I will spread the news about the Dominator Divine Artifact." "You are crazy!" The Fire Dragon Sparrow roared angrily. "The situation is a bit complicated. We can only wait and see what happens." After hearing the conversation between the Earth Dragon King and the Fire Dragon Sparrow, Night Sorrow knew that things weren't going well. If his guess was correct, another king-level entity would be arriving soon. It was impossible for the Earth Dragon to summon all 5 king-level entities at once. His biggest advantage was that he had received Tianyun Bao's acknowledgement and could summon him at any time. However, he definitely couldn't summon him at this time. Otherwise, he would be chased endlessly in this small world. Is it possible to form an alliance with the kings here? At this time, Night Sorrow began to consider this possibility. The kings in this small world were undoubtedly very eager to leave. However, they had been trapped here for many years and were definitely very suspicious. It would be difficult to convince them. With this thought in mind, Night Sorrow felt that this matter could be considered, but he needed the right opportunity. Therefore, he quietly waited for the other kings to arrive. The Firebat King is about to arrive. Dragon Sparrow King, what do you think? You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.